Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone in between, brace yourselves for an epic podcast as I, Dawn, the disciple of domination, and Josh, the judicator of the Jujigatami, bring you the latest scoop from the wrestling world. We're here to tag team your eardrums with the most electrifying talk in podcast history. Tighten your bootstraps and prepare for a no holds barred journey to the pinnacle of podcast entertainment. This is Top Tier Wrestling.
Wow. The judicator of the Jujikatami.
That's right.
Man.
Ooh.
I'm
Ooh.
gonna have to think for a minute about what the Jujikatami even is. Isn't that the cross armbar?
It is.
The Jujikatuji? Alright, there we go.
Or
I like
as
it.
Taz says it, Tommy.
The Jujikatami.
Jujikatami. He gets so excited about it.
So excited about it. All right. Well, I'm blown away, but I am excited today to talk about WWE RAW from September 30th. This was the last 3-hour segment. We're going to a 2-hour format from here on out. And from it, it's like the Jujikatami.
Jujikatami.
But this show did not disappoint, man. SmackDown's going to have to step up its game because its big brother Raw is bringing it.
I mean, baby brother gonna do what baby brother do, you know?
I hear you, but it definitely went a long way to not only present us with an excellent episode of WWE Raw, but it also did a good job building some more heat leading into Bad Blood, which I believe is happening this weekend. And
it sure is.
There were a few matches that I was kind of lukewarm on that they managed to make me really kind of want to see now. And we'll get to that as we work our way through the show.
But to open Monday Night Raw, you knew that they had to make it a Monday Yeet Day.
Monday Night Raw.
Monday Night Raw. I like that.
Yeah, they open up with "Ooh, so," and so Jay is in the back.
Since day one. You know?
He has been down since day one ish. And they open. They open with Jey Uso in the back, carousing with the fans, and also his young son Jace.
Adorable.
And the whole segment just feels great. I mean, you always get a massive pop because main event Jey Uso and the character he's made, the Yeet Man, Cuckoo Kachu.
He's a nice boy.
He is. And so he comes out and he's totally carousing with the fans. He's dancing with them. He's, giving them the low five, I think is what he does. Yeah. And he's making his way to the ring, and he's getting helped by like this one female fan right before he's coming over the barricade. And I was like, "Hurry up, Jay! She's gonna grab you up and steal you."
Oh no!
and he makes his way into the ring, and he proceeds to let everyone know that he fully intends to be a fighting Intercontinental champ, and he's gonna fight for it every week, and he's gonna fight anyone who wants it. Yeet. Yeah. And he pretty much tells all of the fan base that he appreciates them and he loves them, and that The Intercontinental Champion main event Jey Uso is now in your city, and it was awesome. And he was just celebrating and carousing with the fans. He also
Celebration.
it was a yeetabration, a very much a yeetabration.
Hmm.
He also said it was a hard road to get there. His family made it hard for him. Roman made it hard for him, and that perked both of our ears up when he said it. Right, we're like,
I
oh, he
know.
said Roman. Like,
He
is
said the
Roman going to
word.
come out?
I was fully
Well,
expecting Roman or Jay or I'm sorry, or Jimmy, somebody, or even Paul to come out because he's referencing the bloodline now.
mm-hmm.
Which lets me
And
know, or I,
yeah,
my suspicions, my feels. I just think, I think that they're about to start bringing that storyline back. I hope, man. I hope, but wishful thinking, maybe. I don't know.
well, I tend to think that drops like that are not unintentional, right?
Yeah.
I believe WWE understands, like, the psychology of their audience to a degree, and that when they say stuff like that, they're priming you so that you can look back on it and be like, oh yeah, he did mention the bloodline, stuff like that, and they're getting it back into your head, the connection between main event Jey Uso and the bloodline.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
Not that I think anyone forgot, but they like to prime you for stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so I don't think it's an inconsequential thing for him to have said that there.
Yeah, I don't think I don't
Leastways,
think Jimmy is gonna come back and people are gonna go, "Who the hell is that?
right? Who? Jimmy? What?
Is that a
No.
tank? Is that another Tangatoa?"
Oh man. Yes, this is Tonga Longa. Um,
Oh my god.
but I
Oh
I do think that drops like that are intentional, and I do think it. As time will tell, but I think our supposition that the OG bloodline will be, reformed to be part of the crew that tackles the current new bloodline and sets us up for the bloodline civil war. I think that's all accurate. I mean, I know it's theoretical right now, but I mean, that's what we've been seeing for some time now. Like, this is the
yeah,
way they're going to go with it.
yeah. Uh, Jay gave some shout out to his mom, and then of course, I had to make some joke last night while watching it because so we always talk about man, guys, don't you hate us? All right, now you listen. It's a joke, okay? You listen good. It is a joke. Settle down, everybody, okay? Joke. But I know that you guys remember when Cody Rhodes was talking about his mom being in the audience. Um, this was like last year before he won the belt, and he got like kind of choked up about that. Well, ever since then, I I just make the joke, about his mom. Like my mom's in the audience. I just make I make that
Yeah,
joke. And so when I heard Jay reference his mom, or when he talked about his mom,
we
I
were both
heard
like, my mom's in the
it's
audience.
I'm in the audience. We just
Sorry, Cody.
we couldn't. Yeah, sorry, Cody. Please forgive. Um, but yeah, but I mean, it was still a very sweet little segment there. And then after he did so, and he yeeted, more yeet.
Yeet.
The Braun Breaker music cuts in, and we're like,
The breaker of
oh
brawn.
Lord. Because if you guys remember, when he lost his belt to Sammy, he did he did not handle that very well. Um, he did not have a very mature response to that. And I'm like, man, somebody's getting speared tonight, I see. Um, but he came out and actually pretty chill. He mentioned that he wasn't here to spoil the fun. He wasn't there to crash the party. He also said no one was getting speared, which kind of put me at ease, kind of, because it's still Braun, right?
Right, but that sounds like something that someone who's about to spear you would say.
Exactly, exactly. So, I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm trying to relax, but I'm still thinking at any moment he might just run up on me with a spear. Um, but he said that he respected the championship. he talked about his family, and he talked about respecting Jay. Um, and he said, he said the championship was going to be on the shoulders of the better man. That he felt it deserves uh, to be on the
Hmm.
shoulders of the better man. And on that night, he says Jay was the better man. And I was like, yeah, all right, nice, nice. Uh, and
Right, and the whole
honestly,
time we're waiting for the like, okay, you're gonna punch him
yes,
now, right? You know?
or right, or but when he says he's not gonna spear him or attack him, I'm thinking, okay, you're not gonna spear him, you're gonna headbutt him. What are you gonna do? You gotta do something, Braun. I'm just squinting the whole time, squinting like Luna Cat. Um,
Hmm. Yes, all the side eye.
yeah, all the side eye, but he doesn't. He's
No,
about to leave the ring. Actually, he goes to leave the ring after he congratulates him, and Jay stops him and says something along the lines of, "Hey, Braun, there's some dogs in Indiana, oos, right?" And then all the audience starts
and
doing
Indiana's
the
like,
the
whoop, whoop,
barking.
whoop. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I'm not
And
gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it because I'm gonna sound ridiculous. I'll let
yeah,
Josh drop the
I
bass.
do
I don't want a chihuahua right now.
I do want to give Braun Breaker credit for the speech he delivered. It was a
Yeah,
good, like, not only the content of the speech, which was very good, like the last line where he said, "I just felt like, I don't know, I should be the first one to come out here as a competitor and as a colleague and tell you congratulations." I was like, wow,
yeah,
okay. Not only did Braun deliver his dialogue like flawlessly, so it goes to show that he's not just an empty-headed sack of muscle, and he can deliver promos and make his
yeah,
character pop. Um, so I thought that was tremendous, and it was just a cool sign of respect between former champion and current champion over their bout. And it was
yeah,
decisively won. Jay Uso didn't beat him by a hair. He beat the crud out of him to get that pin.
yeah,
Um, so that was a really cool way to open Raw. And
yeah.
sportsmanship. Um,
Sportsmanship. No.
it
Um.
also makes me think that they might be doing a turn on Braun. Like he's still going to be, the dog, and he's still going to be, a badass. But it
Yeah.
looks like they might be trying to make a face out of him.
Yeah. And I'm cool. I'm cool with that too. He was
Hmm.
still alpha dog dominant as a face, so it works. And now I think he can actually be a face and not have to, because when he originally uh came about in NXT, he was somewhat of a face, but nobody really knew what to think of him yet. So it really didn't come off very well until he became a heel. And then after
Yeah.
that, he kind of, I would say, more gray area when he was teaming up with Baron. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
excuse me. But now that he's established himself, and now that we have seen him destroy things and dominate and be a fierce competitor, him going back to face mode, I think the audience can accept that a bit more now, and
Yep. He
and not question whether or not he can still get it done in the ring, or if he can even get it done in the ring. We know now.
Yeah, and I like the way they're playing that because Braun, kind of had to be a heel to make the impact and to earn his stripes and become credible as this new NXT, buck that everyone like had said, oh, he's a badass. Oh, that's Rick Steiner's kid, so you know why he's here. Wink, wink. And it's like, no, Braun Breaker has risen to the occasion. He is becoming a very, like, we have watched just over the past like year how much more complete he is getting on a daily basis as a
Absolutely.
performer.
Yeah.
And so kudos to Braun Breaker. And moving on from that really cool segment, we then cut to kind of a scene outside the arena where the Judgment Day is conversing around the Lucha Lowrider. And it starts out as just Dominic and Liv, and they're discussing, have you seen Finn? And he's like, no, I haven't heard anything from him yet. and JD McDonough and Carlito walk up and they're like, "Hey, where's Finn?" And right around that time, Dominic Mysterio's cell phone rings, and it's apparently Finn on the line. So
Mhm.
they go and they talk for a little bit, and then Dominic comes back and lets everybody know that Finn is having some travel issues, but he'll be here soon.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like they literally tell you that he's planning to be here soon, but an event later on in the evening, the announcers Tessitore and Barrett are like, "We didn't know Finn was gonna be here," and it's like you didn't because like there was a whole
Actually,
segment at the beginning where he said he'll be here soon.
actually, it was mostly Tesseract. My man, like, was so shocked that Finn Balor was there that he couldn't comprehend life. Like he was
Yeah,
so shook. I mean, we'll get to it. We'll get to it when whenever we talk about that
when we
part,
get
that
to that
portion.
match,
But
yeah,
holy cow, guys! I mean, my man, it was a brand new day. It was a cow looking at a. It was a cow looking at a new gate. If you've never seen that, I'm gonna tell you, they are shook about it. Like he was like, "What?" But we'll get back to
yeah,
that.
yeah. But you
Yeah.
mentioned it being a brand new day for him. Speaking of new day, that brings us to the
Hey.
first match of the night.
You like
You,
what I did there?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good segue material. Thanks for the setup. That's the bump. Now,
Accidental.
hopefully, I'm
Ooh,
spiking it.
ooh.
Um,
You
so
got it.
that brings us to the first match of the night, which is Rey Mysterio versus Xavier Woods, and this is from a conflict that happened last week, where Xavier was not really accepting of the LWO's apology and took some shots at Rey Mysterio, and so now we have a match.
Yeah.
And this first match is actually very solid. Like Woods and Mysterio are bringing it,
Mhm.
and you're getting pretty much everything that you've come to expect out of Rey Mysterio for the most part.
Yeah.
Hitting tilt a whirl head scissor takeovers and sitting sentons, and really like more so than normal. Like the springboard crossbody that Mysterio throws generally looks good, but the one tonight looked like extra good, and I'm not sure why. But
Yeah.
Mysterio was looking solid, and Woods was looking good, and then we kind of come to the end sequence of the match, and it looked like it was a breakdown of some kind. Initially, like it looked like it was a move that was flubbing, and I'm not sure if it was or wasn't a botch, but it ultimately was a situation where Woods kind of had, I think, actually, Mysterio kind of had Woods in the position for like a reverse suplex or a reverse DDT, where he's got Woods kind of bent backwards underneath his arm,
Yeah.
and Woods reached up and grabbed around Mysterio's head as if he were going to flip Mysterio over, kind of in a what is it called? A snapmare, and
Mhm.
instead of it becoming a snapmare, it ends up being Woods ripping the mask right off of Rey Mysterio, which forces Mysterio to his knees to cover his face, as a luchador doesn't want to be seen without his mask, even though historically in the WWE there was a long period where Mysterio was maskless.
Yeah.
But this ain't that time, and so it's a huge dishonor to have his mask off. So Mysterio just sort of crumples to the mat to keep his face from being seen. And Woods, it seems, did this entirely unintentionally. Like he was reaching back to try and just counter out of the move he was in, and ended up with a handful of Mysterio mask.
Yeah.
But and Woods sort of acts panicked, like, "Oh no, what have I done? I didn't mean to do that." But then realizing that they're still in a match, he just goes ahead and quick rolls up Mysterio for a pin that still managed to keep Mysterio's face from being seen, because I think Mysterio just kept his hands over his face and head,
Yeah.
and that earns Woods a victory over the Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio. And Woods, I think, may have even handed him his mask back. I'm not sure where the camera was, but he certainly didn't try and take it. And he still, when he left the ring, he still was like flabbergasted that happened. Like they very much conveyed that was not anything Woods did intentionally.
Yeah. The audience was still not feeling it. They were not happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course the commentary were divided on, that being an accident. Like Tessitore was, Woods doesn't seem like he did that on purpose, and Wade is like, sure he didn't, but hey, it's fine. Do what you got to do to win over a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
So that sort of becomes the mystery of the night, and that comes up again here in just a moment after the match.
yeah.
But this was a solid match between
Yeah,
Woods and Mysterio with kind of a surprising finish, and
really
so that
good. It
made
was
it
really good.
that gave it immediately like extra interest. Like it was like, oh, because from out of
Yeah,
nowhere, because it wasn't like when the opponent is trying to take the mask off and we're like, oh god, we're so over that. This seemed more
yeah,
like it was actually a like costume malfunction, and so it was
yeah,
really pretty well done.
yeah. I thought it was hella smart. Um, and I mean, it was something better than a referee goof or somebody interfering or coming out to bother Ray, like Dominic comes out and do something stupid, and then
Yeah,
Xavier gets the roll up pin. I liked this a lot better. It was like a oh shit, like a just
yeah,
a unfortunate series of events that take place,
yeah.
and it looked really good. And I think Xavier played it off very well. It was really good. And the gasp from the audience was
Yeah, once the audience figured
the
out what had
collective
happened, they were like,
gasp.
"Oh?" Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Not only was it fantastic because of that, I mean, it was a surprise and it was something unique, right? Like
Yeah,
like you just said, there was no interference from Dominic Mysterio or any other kind of shenanigans. This
yeah,
legitimately looked like an unfortunate event in the ring, and it was unique and it was fresh and it was a cool way to give a little extra to what would have otherwise, I mean, not a bad match, but like sort of like it didn't have that much heat until last week, and now it's got like a little more controversy to it,
yeah,
and it was cool. I really appreciated how this particular match was produced. That they did that. That was very
yeah,
neat.
yeah. I agree. Speaking of unfortunate events, Sonya Deville uh was on the screen next with 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 Shayna Baszler. Um, I mean, not unfortunate events because it's Sonya. Okay, I mean that was a joke, right? But unfortunate events because she is there to intimidate Lyra Valkyria
Hmm.
ahead of her match with Zoe Stark. And it's just just your regular shit talk. They seem to be tightening the reins on this particular faction, uh, trying to polish it and um, make it look like it's a bit more put together. Um, I feel like they're giving each one of these women now a particular role, uh, and it seems that Shayna is the quiet, um, the monster. She's like the solo Sokoa of this new particular faction. Um,
Kinda, yeah,
kinda.
because
I mean
during
that's I mean she didn't say anything. She just played
right,
some
right. I
cards or
just
something, and
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that because, like, I get that she's the queen of spades, and so she's
mm,
sitting there shuffling a deck of cards, I guess, menacingly. But
yeah,
she seemed almost so preoccupied with shuffling those freaking cards, like that she lost the real reason that she's there. Like she ended up
yeah,
just like, kind of side facing the camera, messing with these cards while Sonya's trying to intimidate Lyra Valkyrie. And
yeah,
it's almost like Sonya had to remind Shayna there, like, hey, over here. Um,
yeah. Sonya has this line where she's like, uh, don't mind her. She doesn't bite unless I tell her to. And I'm like, what kind of kinky shit
yeah,
is this? What are we
yeah.
doing, ladies? What do you mean you're not gonna what? I'm like,
Hmm.
what kind of pet bullshit is this? But whatever. And later on, when we do see Stark, she seems to be the unhinged, screamy one who is just here to destroy their opponent and call it a day. She screamed several times and did a lot of flexing.
And
She was
seemed a
also
little,
very eager to get
yeah,
into the ring
jumpy, I
and
would almost say. Like she was
very
almost
bush
spastic.
like. Yeah, very Butch like. Remember when Butch when he was with Sheamus and yeah, and he was like
I
always just
do.
like screaming or like punching himself. It was kind
And
of like
thank you
that.
for clarifying that, given the composition of PFC, what you meant with Butch.
Yeah. You'll love to hear it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh. Guys, have you met Josh?
Hey,
Um
I'm just saying, like, my first thought is, oh, how do you mean that? And then you were like, yeah, how Pete Dunne was when he was Butch. I'm like, oh, okay. So I just I'm glad you clarified.
No, you are absolutely correct. And I'm so glad that you fucking caught on to that because that'd been bad. Good looking out.
I try.
Yeah, yeah.
But after that segment with Lyra Valkyria, we cut to Xavier Woods sort of walking in the hall, still kind of looking out of sorts about how that match with Mysterio went down. And he's approached by Kofi Kingston, and
Mm.
Kofi immediately lets him, asks him, like, did you mean to do that? And he's like, no, I didn't. But, it happened and I used it to my advantage. And they both were like, yeah, yeah, okay, cool. So I'm not sure where we're going with Woods on that one. Because I thought they were trying to make him a heel, but then him being surprised about catching a win that way, I'm still kind of like, where are we going with him?
Yeah.
Um, but Kofi then goes on to say, well, I'm glad you had your opportunity to face Rey Mysterio. I went and talked to Adam Pearce about an opportunity to face Jey Uso for the Intercontinental Championship. And Woods is like, oh, nice. Okay, okay. And then Kofi's like, yeah, but an opportunity for you to face Jey for the Intercontinental Championship. And Woods, like, just blows up. He's so happy about it. And Kofi goes on to tell him, yeah, I think you absolutely deserve it, and so good luck. And
You
Woods
know,
says that he appreciated that Kofi let him have his match with Ray by himself, but he would like to accompany Kofi for his match tonight
right.
with Chad Gable. And in the background, you see Karrion Cross sort of lurking and listening way in the back.
Yeah. I didn't know that it was carrying cross. It looked like a hooded figure to me. I had no idea, but it caught my attention when I was watching this particular segment. I couldn't help but look at this person in the back, and I'm like, "Who is this?" But I guess it was carrying cross, and I was gonna ask you, but now I know.
Yeah, it's solidified it for me. I was like, who is that in the back? Because it kind of looked like LA Knight almost, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
later in the evening, Carrion comes out with a match involving the Authors of Pain, not to jump the gun here. And looking at what he was wearing when he came out there solidified who it was in the background I was looking at during
Yeah.
that segment.
Ah. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it was Carrion. And
Yeah.
so Carrion is doing something interesting here, and it's going to come into play again later on tonight. But
Yeah.
like he seems to be sort of the devil in everyone's ear kind of a role, and I'm not sure where they're going with it, but they
Mhm.
seem committed to it, and it seems to
Yeah.
have some interesting stuff going on. So I'm completely open to see where it's going.
I
That said,
it,
I still would like to see Carrion in a few more matches. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I cool that he's being sort of a backstage kind of personality, but I do want to see him like demolish some people in the ring too.
Yeah, because it was just getting good. He was just starting to look like the carrying cross that we had seen in NXT. Uh,
Hmm.
and
And
then
he
they
debuted
kind
that
of pulled him out. Yeah.
final judgment like off the shoulder spinning DDT,
Yes.
and it's like
Which is
this.
so ouchy looking, man.
Yeah, this is what we came to see from a guy as big and as jacked as Carrion is. Not like some of the moves he's using. Like a sleeper hold and a like running forearm, and it's like you're ginormous, man. Hit him
Yeah.
with like a power bomb or something. So the off the shoulder DDT is nice. I think that's a serious upgrade to what he was doing before.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Excuse me. After that, we had the second match of the night, which was Lyra Valkyria versus Zoe Stark. I hope I'm saying Lyra's last name right. And then
Valkyria,
of course,
yeah,
yeah, okay,
you
and of
nailed it.
course, Zoe Stark came out with Pure Fusion Collective. Now this is what we were talking about. She was extra screamy, Zoe Stark. And
Hmm.
she was extra screamy and extra like she had like an entire cup of like an entire pot of coffee
Yeah.
before she came out to have this match. So I'm
Hmm.
assuming that her new role is the small Tasmanian devil one.
Yeah,
Um,
and like you related it to how Butch was in the Brawling
mhm,
Brutes.
yeah,
I also feel like it's kind of where what is it, Tonga? No, Tamatonga is sort of feeling that like "Ang, ang, 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 ang," Tasmanian devil
yes,
energy in the bloodline, and so
yep,
it's much more spastic and just kind of like high strung and shaky. And
yeah,
I don't know. It's almost like she's evoking an entirely different character than the more like methodical and tear you apart Zoe Stark.
yeah,
And I guess we'll see where it goes, but I'm not sure I'm sold on it because I was never that over on it with Butch, and I'm definitely not
yep,
over on it with Tomatonga. So we'll see. But I digress. You were saying?
yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, I understand what they're going for. I appreciate that they are trying to bring the reins in here for this particular faction. I appreciate that. I just don't know how I feel about the particular roles that they are dishing out. In fact, I don't even know if I would have put Sonya in charge of this particular faction. I think I would have put Shayna in charge if Shayna was there. If she
Yeah.
was, you know what I mean? But she's not. And I don't blame her being checked out. I'm just saying. Well, actually, I do blame her for being checked out. I can say though that maybe I understand why she would be so checked out. I mean, how many times are you gonna job for people half your size and strength? Um, how many times are you gonna do that before you just go, man, screw this?
Yeah.
Um,
I can
and maybe
agree
that's the
with
case,
that.
but can also say that I have to blame her. I'm so sorry. I'm good. But I have to blame her because she is putting herself and other wrestlers at risk not being fully checked in. You check out
Yep.
in the ring,
Mhm.
then that's how injuries happen. And I don't want any wrestler, I don't care if I like you or not. I don't want CM Punk to get in the ring and get injured. I want I want these men and women to have successful careers and I I mean it's already a very difficult job, guys. Like it's already very painful. Um so anything that makes that harder, I'm not here for. And
Yeah.
I want her to consider, I want every wrestler to consider their opponent and themselves, their bodies when they get into the ring. Like you
Yeah.
gotta be focused. Imagine if Will Ospreay decided to have a not their day mentally when he got into the ring.
Yeah, that
I
would turn
mean,
into a bad match,
that could be a
especially
very
with
bad
some of the
time.
high and risky moves that they're trying to do.
Yeah,
Um, Speaking to the checked outness of Shayna Baszler, if our suppositions are correct, because I mean, it could be any number of things. Like maybe she's
yeah,
just done this for a while and it's hard to get
yeah,
excited about it. I don't know,
yep, yep, yep,
But if it is she's disenchanted about not getting a push or disenchanted about having to do the job for people, that she should be kicking the crap out of, then right now when Pure Fusion Collective has main spots on the top television show is not the time to be checked out. This is actually your opportunity to
I
get
agree.
those things back.
I agree.
Again, this all presumes that those are the reasons for the checked outiness. If it's not, then
Yeah,
if the cause isn't what we think it is, then the cure wouldn't make sense either. But they're trying to give a push to Pure Fusion Collective right now. So now is the time for all three of these women to fully step up. Because when you get that spotlight time, this is when you got to prove to them that it was worth it for them to give you that spotlight time. So
yeah,
now's your moment. And that's pretty much all I wanted to add to that.
yeah. I tend to agree with you on that. Um, I man, I honestly wish that Shayna, I kind of feel like they do something in WWE, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like they treat male male superstars differently when they get to a certain age versus the female superstars when they get to around about the same age. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like they haven't really given Shayna any real competition. Um, I think the last time she had a real good match may have been with Rhea. I think. I can't really think
Quite
of
possibly.
another time since then. And I think that I mean, it was so long ago that I'm trying to really remember if there was anything that stood out in that match. But I think I remember feeling like that it was a good match, that she gave as good as she got. But I don't know. I really don't know what to expect from the rest of Shayna's career. And looking at other women in the division that are around her age, that doesn't help either. Because it's like all over the place. Uh, Becky, she's not as old, but she's close. She's getting there. It's like she's like either in her late 30s or early 40s. I think she might be 40, 41. Um, she had a superstar run, man. Like everything she touched was gold as far as WWE was concerned. Totally over. Uh, Natalia, probably the oldest of the women that I'm talking about tonight or today. Um, she is kind of treated a little bit differently. Um, Sometimes they seem to be super up on her. They always mention that she's been in the most matches, or she's won the most this, or she's done the most that. Every single time she gets in the ring, they talk about her like she's a decorated veteran who is there to do a special uh, favor to WWE. That's the vibe that I get. And Shayna kind of just gets a, I don't know what to call this. I don't know what to call this because she spent a lot of the last 2 years or so just jobbing. Like the match with her and Ronda Rousey didn't, I don't think it garnered the attention that they were hoping for. And I think maybe it was because the whole story that they put together for it was just, it felt forced. It felt thrown together, and like that the issues that they each had with one another was kind of like, really? Can we not maybe have some ice cream and sit outside and talk about it for a second? I mean, this is some real childish shit that we're about to brutally beat each other for, but okay. Um, and it didn't really go. It didn't really go as far as I had hoped. That push didn't go as far as I'd hoped for her. Um, So I don't know. And the audience generally seems to be checked out with Shayna when she gets in the ring too. All parties involved seem to just be about it. And I might be wrong. Maybe she's just fine with it. Maybe she's like, hey, I've had an illustrious career, and I'm ready to just sit back and collect a check. Or maybe she thinks it's just fine. And my opinion doesn't mean shit. And you know, it doesn't for her. I get it. Whatever the case, I wish that I could see more fire from this group in general. More brutality to match the look and the music and the, you know, less
Yeah.
shooting at the
Yep.
ground.
Oh, you just opened up a whole lot of stuff that I'd like to speak to.
Uh-oh.
One, I'll hit your last point first, just because it's the freshest. Fire from this group, I think, would be good because there
Ugh.
seems to be like almost a cognitive dissonance, right?
Yep.
Like there's how they want us to perceive PFC,
Yes.
and then there's what we actually see. Like they're
Yep.
trying to sell us that these are three super badasses, and yet they've been doing very little else but jobbing. I mean, they're just now starting to have a turnaround. So it's like you can only tell me how badass you are while you still continue to lose in that ring on a regular basis and can
Yeah.
only win with outside interference. Like anybody
Come
could.
on. Yep.
Like anyone could. So it just doesn't sell me on the idea that you are all badasses when that's the only way you can squeak out a win, and you don't even do that most of the time. So there's
Yeah.
just that here's what you're trying to sell me, and here's what I see is actually what we got.
Yeah.
So that dissonance has to be shored up somehow. And if they're starting to do that now, cool. But speaking to uh, these three women, I think a large number of wrestlers don't respect the fact that their move set has to be interesting. I know they are all looking at like, well, I need a move that I can do to any opponent in any size, and that kind of crap. I need a move I can do every night without it breaking my hips for my longevity. And those aren't invalid concerns, but if that means your finisher is just garbage because it's very basic, or a strike or a submission or some lame ass crap that no one finds visually interesting, then you have dinged yourself on being interesting, which is the thing that you want to be more than anything else if you're a professional entertainer.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So you were missing the forest for the trees. And I'm sorry, the Deville's Advocate, which is sort of a like sit down DDT, which is basically a regular move that Finn Balor uses, is not
Yeah.
interesting as a finisher on Sonya Deville. The Z360 is at least interesting in that they do a 360. Otherwise, it's like a variation of go to sleep. And I know I'm alone in this, but I'm so sick of submission and strike finishers. Like, they're everywhere now. They are so everywhere, and it's such a cop out to having to pick anybody up or do a slam or anything. And I hate it. And you see it, like, particularly rife in a women's division where largely the women get by on strikes and submissions because they don't have the upper body mass that men do to try and slam somebody.
Yeah.
And so it makes them altogether more boring. I'm not looking for WWE to try and pretend it's the UFC. Leastways, now that they're actually owned by the UFC. So that strikes at Shayna Baszler's whole shtick, because that means since she's an old UFC chick, she's going to do nothing but exclusively like pretend strikes and like submission holds that don't look that visually interesting. She's her finisher is just one more freaking rear naked choke. It's
Yeah.
the same as what Samoa Joe does. It's the same as what Karrion Kross used to do. It's
Yep.
so overused. I'm just sick of seeing it, and it doesn't do anything to make me feel impressed about any of your move set. And so many wrestlers, not just women, but the women have a particular problem with it, as I just mentioned, have these completely uninteresting move sets to me. Like right now, the whole industry seems to be rife with people that want to use running knee strikes and shit. And I'm
Yeah.
so over it. Like it's saturated to the point of barfdom. It's like how I complained how every third wrestler in any league seems to use a spear as a finishing move. Like it's the
Yeah.
default setting.
Yeah.
And some wrestlers can really make the spears look very, very good, but it is saturated. Um, so having a visually interesting and compelling and brutal looking move set, I think, would go a long way here. Again, Zoe Stark's Z360 is another strike, but at least she attempts to find a way to make it look more interesting than the 50 other thousand billion variations of go to sleep that exist in the wrestling world right now.
Yeah.
And so I think that would help a lot. I think for Shayna Baszler in particular, I don't know why she's checked out, but if I was going to rebuild her and make her more dominant, she would be a lot less submission based and a whole lot more strikes and slams and suplexes based.
Yeah.
And like, if she still wants to maintain the submission magician, then she has to come with an extremely visually interesting submission. Like, one more rear naked choke just ain't doing it for me. At least something like cattle mutilation looks visually interesting, or Charlotte Flair's figure eight, where she, takes the figure four and does a back bend to add to it. something. You know, she really needs some help in that regard because like her coming out there with her current attitude looking like she's a little checked out and then just doing what is the minimum and with a savvier and savvier audience. I mean, unless you want your whole audience to just be kids 5 and under, which the WWE kind of seems like they do, but then again they're making moves towards getting into that teen bracket because NXT is fixing to go PG-14 so that they can say some naughty words and stuff. So they realize that there's some value in trying to pull like people that are a little bit older so that when they bring their kids, they're not bored out of their mind. Um, so for Shayna, she would need to incorporate more slams and whatnot. Like at least when she used to set up the Kirifuda, she would do like almost like a vertical suplex into it and whatnot. Now it's not even that. Um, so she looks like she's just doing the least out there. So if you know, I can't correct whatever, you know, has her checked out about being there. But I would definitely change that up to make her more interesting. And you know, it lies with the performers and, you know, they need to give the audience a reason to be interested. And they need to do that every single week, right? It is very much a what have you done for me lately business. So just because you were great like 3 years ago, well, that was 3 years ago. You know, be great tonight and then be great tomorrow night. And to do that, you're going to have to revamp some of these move sets where it looks like these ladies are doing more than the barest of minimum of fake strikes and fake submissions. They're going to have to bring some interesting stuff. And the contrast to that will be, you know, what ended up being the main event tonight, which involved a lot of very big, like massive high spot slams and whatnot. But we'll
Yeah.
get there. But that is the contrast to what we typically get with some of these women's matches where it's very visually unappealing and the women aren't taking very many, you know, I guess risks or trying to push it at all with their move sets. They're on cruise control. And, you know, if that's the level of interest that you're bringing to the product as the performer, then you can't be real surprised that the level of interest you're getting back from both the back office and from the fans is also equally diminished. So you've got to step it up.
I
And
agree.
I really think that would go a long way to certainly help DeVille and Baszler. Zoe's is at least fairly like she still likes to do like the big drop kicks and some strikes and whatnot, but I mean, you've got to come with an interesting move set. It can't just be, well, you know, I found the easiest thing that I can do to any opponent of any size every night of the week so that I can preserve my longevity. Longevity into what? Mediocrity? Um,
Yeah.
you'll have a really long go nowhere, nobody remembers you tomorrow career with that attitude. So you're going to have to step it up a notch.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And I'm hoping that eventually, I mean, I say eventually, but I mean, how much time do we have here, right? Um,
Yeah, for
I'm
Deville
just
and for
hoping. Yeah,
Baszler, their time is now. Like they're
yeah,
this
yeah,
isn't a
yeah,
long-term fix for them.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So we'll see. We'll see. But maybe that's what's happening, right? Maybe that's what tightening the reins here is about. Maybe we'll get to see something different. If Zoe is supposed to be the small Tasmanian devil, the crazy one, the unhinged one or whatever, if she's supposed to be that particular character, then maybe Shanna's supposed to be the powerhouse. We'll see. I don't know exactly what Sonya would be in the ring, but I know she's the mouth right now. She's a shit talker, right? She's the one in charge. She plays the mind games and stuff like that. We'll see where this goes.
Yep.
I'm willing to keep an open mind because I do like all the women involved here. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
individually they're awesome. And I thought when they got together, I'm like, oh yeah, but not yet, not yet. But maybe we're getting there.
yeah, Mick Foley said in his book that he had a difficult time being part of a team because he would, and he understood his own tendencies. He said he would end up just kind of fading into the background and doing less because he was part of a team. Whereas when he went solo, he could focus entirely on what he was doing on himself and knew he had to carry the whole thing, and that helped him, at least in his own estimation.
Yeah.
So I think that ties into what you're talking about, how we've got three incredible, potentially incredible singles competitors. When they come together, that should be a force multiplier, right? But maybe not if some of them start to fade into the background when they're not focused on their own individual career
Yeah.
as much.
And I don't think Shayna needs any more reason to fade farther or further into the back.
No. And focusing now specifically on who was in the ring for this match, we've got Lyra Valkyria and Zoe Stark. And two things I'd like to mention that are related to what we were just talking about is Lyra Valkyria, I think, has all the tools to be very, very good. But she does have one really big flaw that I notice when I'm watching her, in that she soft shoes a lot of what she attempts to execute. Like she's almost too careful. It's a similar complaint that we had to Bianca Belair from like a year ago or 2 years ago,
Yeah.
where it looked like she's not selling her own moves because she telegraphs them too much, or she sells them soft too much. And I see
Yeah.
that a lot of times. Like Lyra Valkyria's strikes have like no impact. Like she is feather touching when she does this. By
Yeah.
contrast, Stark, also a fairly new competitor, does not have that problem. Stark makes everything she's doing look brutal. Her drop kicks are nasty.
Yeah.
Her slams and backbreakers are mean looking. Like I don't have that problem with Stark that we see a lot of times with the women, unfortunately, where they are making it look more like a dance instead of a combat, and they soft shoe their moves or they over
Yeah.
telegraph their moves. And
That's a
I
really good
just
way to
wanted to
put it.
point out the difference. Valkyria really does that. Like when Valkyria does her finisher, the Nightwing, I think she calls it. She's essentially doing the same move as what is it, Legado del Fantasma, the Phantasma driver.
Hmm.
And the difference is, no pun intended, stark, because Santos Escobar, when he does it with extreme prejudice. When Valkyria does it, it's like she gently places them on the ground.
Yeah.
And she really needs to put more impact into her strikes, into her moves, enough that it looks like she's believably doing it instead of doing tap taps. A similar example would be when we were recently watching Nigel McGuinness versus Brian Danielson. And we noted that McGuinness's strikes all looked very soft, very weak.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't connecting well with them. Some of them looked like they might have not connected at all. Whereas,
Yeah.
Danielson made everything look like it, knocked Nigel's block off.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a safety issue. I think it's a, how you're delivering and selling your own moves issue, because at no point did we hear Brian Danielson is an unsafe worker in that ring, for his strikes. Like his opponents aren't coming out going, he hit me way too hard. Um, at least I haven't heard anything along those lines. And we keep seeing Stark in that ring, and she similarly is making her stuff look like it actually hurts. Whereas Valkyria's stuff looks like, it makes it very clear that this is a choreographed performance between the two people in the ring. And so
Yeah.
she really needs to work on making her shit look convincing.
Yeah. I agree.
That
But
said,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna continue with how the match ended up.
Yep.
Which was essentially it was a good match. But what you would expect to happen happens. Sonya intervenes. She gets the referee's attention. And oh no, I'm sorry, not Sonya. Uh, Shayna distracts the ref. Valkyria. Wow,
Valkyria, yeah.
Valkyria attacks Sonya. Um, at one point, and then Shayna distracts the ref. Uh, so when Isn't it like she tried to do a move and the ref didn't see it? Or
Yeah,
was it Deville did something like she hits Valkyria?
it was
Uh
both of those things.
okay.
Shayna got the ref distracted, which led Valkyria to trying to go for an O'Connor roll to count,
Mhm.
but I don't think the ref caught it in time. And then when the ref was sort of distracted again, Deville managed to clock Valkyria with a sliding knee as Valkyria was resting, I think, on the middle rope.
Okay,
And
okay. And
it
then
was,
Dart
yep,
gave her the Z360 and victory.
picks up the victory. Yep.
Yeah. And then after the match, I think before Pure Fusion Collective could shoot the ground, um, strike their
Shoot your
pose.
shot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, guys, the shoot your shot, I don't mind. I don't mind that. It's when they say it and they point their metaphorical guns down to the ground that I'm like, I don't think that's where you want your shot to be.
And if
I'm
you're
just
not
saying.
down with that, they got three words for you: shoot your
grit,
shot.
grit your teeth. Um,
Grit your teeth.
hope for
GYV versus
best
PFC
for the KFC. Um,
for the KFC, the
yes.
Kentucky Fried Championship.
But after the match, um, Pure Fusion Collective gets into a brawl with Katana Chance and Caden Carter.
Yep, who we
Um,
haven't seen in a minute. It
yeah,
was kind of good because we asked, we were like, didn't Valkyria have friends before? And
yeah.
now they're
One.
back.
So they were about to go in on Lyra, PFC was, and that's what brought Katana Chance and Caden out. Feisty as
Yep.
ever. Feisty as ever.
And Katana showed up with a bedazzled face mask because of, I guess, a
Yeah,
broken nose.
yeah. A big guys. I'm sorry. Maybe you didn't hear a bedazzled face mask. All right,
Yeah, it was fully sparkly,
glittery ass.
glittery
Okay,
af.
glittery ass.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Um,
sparkly. So winner Zoe Stark.
Winner
Uh,
Zoe Stark.
After that, we got a really cool. We basically got a recap of Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. They showed us the Godzilla versus Kong vignette again.
Hmm.
And
But
then they
added a
basically
bit of the
recapped.
history. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a little recap of the history of the two. Um, and then after that, we got some backstage action. Where Katana Chance and Katana and Caden again were talking to Jackie. Jackie, right? Yeah, we're talking to
I think
Jackie.
so. Yeah. Hmm.
And they said they had some unfinished business with PFC because the bedazzled face mask was because of them. Um, but the unholy union came in. Looks like they just came out of the gym. Because what's her name? The Alba Fire is getting ripped. She's getting ripped as hell. Uh,
Hmm.
I think she's been spending all the time not in the ring, in the gym. Like she's been working some things out. So yeah. But that's just me noting some muscles. Um, but they came
It's
out and
noteworthy.
yeah, and they talk some smack to Katana and Caden because they're cutting the line basically for this match. And little sparkly face did not like that. She went all the way
Mm,
off on
yep.
them. She was like ready to go. When I say feisty, I mean just look.
Maximum feisty.
She ready for it. Like anybody can get the smoke. Okay,
And
she said her hands and feet are rated E for everybody.
for
Okay, she means
everybody. And
everybody.
it was good to see. Two things I'd like to note about this particular promo that made me
Mhm.
happy. One, Katana and Caden were both like more serious because the whole party girl thing I don't think was doing them any favors. It
No.
made them seem bubble headed. Here
Yeah.
Katana, even with the mask that was bedazzled for her broken nose, she really seemed like she was ready to throw down, and I liked it. I liked that a lot. That said, I'm not entirely sure what line Unholy Union was worried that they were cutting into, because like PFC isn't like a champion. So it's
Yeah,
like, is there a line for a match with them?
I
Um
have no idea. But that's a really great question. And I'm assuming that they're referring to Zoe and Shayna because there's two for each of these groups and three for PFC. So are we putting
yeah.
Sonya like in a management position? Is she not wrestling as much anymore? Or what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I was a little confused by it. Like, not that I mind the Unholy Union maybe just talking smack to
No,
Katana
no,
and
not at all.
Caden,
Yeah. Talking
but
smack, build some heat.
we we had a 3-on-3 there with Valkyria, Katana, and Caden.
Right.
Um, and PFC is 3 women, so I thought that had nice parity. So
Right.
I'm curious to see where they're trying to go with this. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe Sonya is hitting more of a management role, and it'll be a tag thing with Shayna and Zoe.
Or maybe the unholy union will find somebody to join them. Hey, it'd be really cool. But I know she's at NXT, so never mind. But the lady that they got from uh C oh
CMLL.
man.
Oh, you're talking
Yes.
Stephanie Vaquer. I don't see that
Yes.
happening because
No, I know.
Stephanie is coming in as a strong singles competitor,
Yeah.
and for
And
all
she's at
I'm not.
NXT right now for some stupid reason, but whatever. I'm not gonna touch that. Not gonna touch that.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure that there wouldn't maybe be a little bit of a language barrier there with Vaquer,
I
but
mean, there's already one.
it doesn't seem to hold up Andrade, so I wouldn't rule that out. But I still think they're going to
Yeah.
want to like have Stephanie make a big impact as a singles competitor, because in CMLL she was at the top of the card,
Yeah.
so her starting in
Josh,
NXT. Hmm?
you are building another conversation right now because you're basically saying what I'm saying, except I would add, why the hell is she in NXT right now? That's
Yeah,
all.
I can only figure. I mean, there was some contentiousness about like her reliability because she dropped her contract immediately with CMLL. So maybe that made the WWE want to see how she does and if she's solid and whatnot. I don't know that, or she was an unknown commodity and they just snapped her up ASAP because she had some like hot eyes on her, especially after AEW's Forbidden Door. So
Yeah.
now that she's here, they want to see how she plays along with the rest of the locker room. That could be my only guess.
Yes.
That, and
Mm.
not for nothing, NXT is its own show, and they can't just keep giving up all of their star power if they want to keep running as a show.
I
So it might
absolutely
just be
agree. I
that.
agree. Yeah, I agree. But my argument there is she should have never been in NXT. Like, I don't think she should have been a star that they would have to go, well, we can't give up all our stars. Like, I think she just, but that's,
Yeah.
but like for all the things that you just said prior to this, prior to that, where you mentioned that she was a top competitor, and I mean, this woman had two belts at one time. Um, but I mean, I don't know what the reason is. I am just having an inside temper tantrum that I am letting out a little because I think she needs to be in WWE because of women's division. Help.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I
But
I fully agree, but I can only assume that they want a test driver. And I can appreciate that. She's new, she's coming in from CMLL. They probably want to see how she gets over with the fans, how she performs with the other entertainers. That's my only guess, is that they want to see how she fits into the WWE roster
well,
first.
I want to
Um
point out that when you said that they wanted to test drive her, I didn't say giggity. So there, I am
I
uh,
mean,
an adult.
yep, yep, yep. I'm
I
gonna
have
move
I am
I'm gonna
adulting,
move
ladies and
on
gentlemen.
from that. Uh, I mean, it's not like Vancouver isn't a looker, so I could see it. But moving on away from that, um, to the idea of a third party to join with the unholy union,
Yeah.
there is precedent for Blair Davenport to team up with
Oh,
them,
yes. Yeah,
and
there
she
you
fits
go.
like thematically. She fits in real good with the Holy Union's whole thing about being kind
Yeah.
of witchy, mysterious, evil, druidy girls. So that
Yeah.
could feel good if we've got Valkyria and Caden and Carter and we've got PFC, you've got two triples right there. If you make a third triple with the Unholy Union, maybe, fingers crossed, wishful thinking, you're setting the stage to introduce a trios championship to the women's
Oh,
division.
please.
Oh
Just
man,
give us belts. WWE,
that would
please.
be
Give us belts.
Christmas.
Give us belts. Clap, 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 clap.
Yep.
Okay.
So I would be here for it if the women's division decided to end up with a trios championship. That would be very cool, and it would give them another prize to go for. I still think they need the women's equivalents of like an intercontinental belt and maybe a U.S. belt, and
Yeah.
we'll see. Um, I'm
Give
sure
us
it's going to
more
take them a minute
belts.
to want to introduce this and not make it look super gimmicky. And I
Yeah.
know they're probably, even though it's fine, even though I as a fan am fine with it, I know they don't want to appear to be copying AEW's methodologies.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it would be really good for their roster, particularly their women's roster, to give them more prizes to fight for. Because unlike the
Yep.
men, they have one tag team championship for both brands. They have two women's championships, and that's it. That's all they got.
Yep.
So some mid card championships wouldn't be bad. Some trios championships wouldn't be bad. I mean, I think all of these you know, have done really great for how they work in AEW. So if that was something that WWE wanted to, copy, big deal. If it's well worth, a few people online going, oh, they copied AEW to actually improve on your booking potential and the prizes to chase for your wrestlers, especially in the women's division. So I would just pull that trigger because the benefits outweigh any potential loss of face negative.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. 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 Um, but continuing with Monday night's events. After Katana and Caden uh had their confrontation with the Unholy Union, um, we got our CM Punk and Drew McIntyre segment. Um,
Oh man.
Adam Pierce was out there. They're making a big to do of this. They lowered the cage, uh, so that the audience could see what it was all about. Um, CM Punk comes out slow and stoic, and Tesseract pointed out, that's right, guys. I'm saying Tesseract. That's it forever. I'll fight you. Anyway, Tesseract um,
Hear that,
says,
Joe? Legal name change right there.
yeah, that's your name. I don't want to hear no Tessatori, Tessanoe. Um, anyway, so, CM Punk comes out, slow and stoic, if you will. And Tesseract points out how he's walking in and how he's looking at the cage and how he's examining every part of it. And I'm like, my man's just walking in, bro. He's
Right?
he's just
Like,
he's just walking in, guy.
do
Could you
he and that
calm down?
cage need a room?
Yeah, like what are you even on about right now, Tesseract? Settle down, my guy. He's just walking in. Can he just walk in? Can he just do that, please? Thank you. So that's what he does. He just freaking walks in. And then Drew McIntyre walks in. Um and he doesn't mention no one mentions how he fondles the cage or anything, or looks at it, or dances with it lovingly. Like, no one talks about that. He just comes in, but him and CM Punk are mean mugging each other the entire time. Um, uh, Drew McIntyre looks like a very angry individual, and CM Punk looked like a very angry cat. I don't know what it was, but he looked like a cat who was really pissed. Um,
Really pissed. Like Drew stole his catnip.
yeah, like he was like, I had catnip, I was asleep, I woke up, I caught the tail end of you eating my catnip, you son of a bitch. I'm quite angry. That was the vibe that my man was giving off. Um, but they start or actually I'm sorry, Drew McIntyre starts and this is basically they've been given permission to say their one last like screw you to each other. They can't touch each other. There are a whole
Hmm.
bunch of like security in the ring with them like
Yes.
separating them those
Yep.
two. Um it's very over the top. Uh
Yeah.
Drew Drew is dressed in all black, and he mentions that, uh, like that it's out of respect, um, for CM Punk's wife because because after what he does to him, Drew after what Drew does to CM Punk, CM Punk's wife is gonna have to feed him and bathe him, and she'll probably leave him. Um, and he basically cuts a really really mean promo
Yeah.
on CM Punk. But I mean, he's done so from the get go, right? It's more of the same. He talks about how CM Punk is the reason that he has hate in his heart. He's taught him this hate, and but after Saturday, uh, when they do their Hell in a Cell, uh, that the hate he has is gonna die with him, with CM Punk. And then CM
Yep.
Punk,
Well,
um,
if I may, before we get to what CM Punk responded with,
yeah,
I also felt like it was neat that Drew pointed out Punk's little brief stint over the last week or two in NXT, and how Roxanne Perez apparently idolized CM Punk until she met him. And
yeah,
now that just a few days having known him and seeing what kind of person he truly is, uh, she, absolutely hates him now. I was
yeah.
like, "Geez, you've already lit him on fire."
Yes, and you lit him on fire, and to put him out, you threw a gallon of like oil.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, uh, yeah, like it was brutal. Um, so then, it was almost like Drew was getting ready to leave because CM Punk was just standing there like he wasn't gonna say
like
anything.
mean mugging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Drew even pointed that out at the beginning of his promo. He said, "Are you not gonna talk? Well then I'll talk or whatever." Uh, but then
yep.
CM Punk starts talking. And he goes, something like throughout my entire career, um, people have called him a lot of things. Like I know Second City Saint was one of them. Uh
Voice of the
oh
voiceless,
yes,
best in the
and best
world.
in the world. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then he says that he's voiceless. He himself is voiceless because he had nothing to say to the piece of garbage that is Drew McIntyre. Uh and then he persists, or he then goes into about a 5 minute long
Yeah,
diatribe
a
of
relatively long diatribe for a man who is
yeah,
voiceless.
yeah. So he found his voice in the 2 seconds after which he made that statement, and went on and cut a promo anyway. um and
Yeah, and
he said, what did he say
if
he was
if
gonna?
if if I
Sorry, go ahead.
may, he goes on. I know we just made fun of him saying the voiceless thing, and it was funny. It was weird, But then what he actually did say next, I thought was pretty good. I mean, all things
Mhm.
considered, I'm not a CM Punk fan, but I'll give him his props. He went on to say that he's filled with so much rage that he can barely look at Drew. He can't go home. He's been living in a hotel for weeks because he refuses to subject his wife to the man that all of this between him and Drew has turned him into. And he tells
Mhm.
Drew, "You son of a bitch, you've turned me into the fictitious boogeyman that all my harshest critics accuse me of being. And that's
Mhm.
exactly who I'm going to need to be inside Hell in a Cell Saturday to send you home to Scotland in a box."
He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong.
He ain't wrong. And then he says, "I want you to remember and never forget," kind of the same things,
Mhm.
"that you prayed for all of this and it happened. And on
Yeah.
Saturday, when you're locked inside the cell with me and I've taken everything from you and your fear subsides and you're gripped with nothing but panic." I'm not sure how fear subsides and you're
I
left with
think.
panic, but
Yeah.
we'll let that go. "On your hands and knees, crawling, begging, you'll look up and I'll wipe the blood from your eyes so you can see me. And it's not going to be a God that you're praying to. And it's not going to be the devil that you're praying to. You'll be praying to CM Punk. I'll see you in hell." And I was like, hey, that's not bad. I mean, outside of
Yeah.
some of the contradictions, that was a pretty good promo.
It was one of the more coherent uh promos cut by CM Punk. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah. And of this particular match, I feel like because there's been some buzz in the news, in the WWE news, just recently about whether or not this match is going to be the main event of Bad Blood. You would think so, right? Because this has got the most bad blood. Like this is
Yeah.
a furious grudge match. So if anything lives up to that, it's Bad Blood. Plus, it's a reference to the original like Hell in a Cell Bad Blood that happened back in 1997 between Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker. So the thought process was that this was going to be the main event, but apparently, from what we've heard, the WWE recently has changed it so that Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob and Solo is going to be the main event. Uh,
Which I get.
Theoretically, because Atlanta is a city with a lot of significance to both men,
Yeah. No, that makes
and
sense.
this is going to be a special attraction, I think is what Adam Pierce called it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, um, curious. I mean, because this does seem like it's the titular match for a pay per view called Bad Blood. Um, so I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Um. I think it is the right call. I mean, maybe this is the match that happens before the main event, but I mean, we are talking about our current champion, our current face, and our previous face of the company, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. That's a big freaking deal. I'm sorry, that
Yeah,
should be the main event. I think.
I
Um.
think I agree with you. Like, even though thematically this match fits the pay per view better,
Yeah.
I think for the stars involved and the draw they represent and the place they hold in the company, I think I agree with you that it makes more sense for it to be Cody and Roman in the main event.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that if that's going to be the main event, it'll be the last match of the night. And that being the case, the next hottest spot is the opening match. So do you think
You're
we're going to
right.
see CM Punk and Drew McIntyre open Bad Blood with their Hell in a Cell?
That would be insane. I'd be here for it. I'd be here for it. I'm gonna need CM Punk to be that dude. He's gonna have to bring it because I already know what Drew McIntyre can do. And I'm fully expecting for Drew McIntyre to yeet him around that ring quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna need something from CM Punk, and I'm not saying that it can't be done. I've seen wrestlers that I dislike more than CM Punk give me great matches. So I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it.
Well, and in some respects, a match like Hell in a Cell almost neutralizes Drew McIntyre's like overt size and power advantage
Yeah,
because you are able to pull out weapons of, very destructive nature
yeah,
um from underneath the ring. And
and
you
he
can do a
better.
lot with that. Like I remember the Hell in a Cell match between Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes where Cody had the torn pec,
Mm-hmm.
which just gave like a whole different level of visual brutality to that match.
Yeah.
Um, but they hit each other with everything, including I think a kitchen sink. So it's very possible that CM Punk could go ham on Drew with weapons.
He better.
Um, so I'm curious to see if they can step this one up and close out this feud that they've had pretty much since CM Punk has been back. He's been in a kind of a feud with Drew McIntyre. And so, if this is, as Adam Pierce had said earlier in that segment, where it ends, that it all ends here, that this is the end. And if that's the case, then I'm really curious to see if CM Punk and Drew McIntyre can really close out this feud that they've been spending the entire return of CM Punk building.
Yeah.
So there's a lot riding on this, and I really hope it's good. I hope it's dealt with better than kind of that revenge match that we recently talked about on Collision between Jamie Hayter and Saraya.
Yeah. Oof.
You would think Hayter would have been coming in there like a house on fire, ready to get all kinds of revenge for, losing like a year and some change of her career to an injury that, in the kayfabe was dealt to her by Saraya.
Yeah.
So I really want to see them bring it. They're going to have to bring all the emotion, all the acting, and all of the brutality, to be perfectly honest. So
Yeah.
I'm real curious. I'm looking forward to that match.
Yep.
And this is one that I feel they did a good job here building some heat for a match that I was relatively lukewarm on. I've been lukewarm on the CM Punk Drew McIntyre feud, and like the most recent match that they had, which was the like strap match where they got to run to each of the corners, really didn't do anything to make that better. I thought that match was stupid. So I really want to see a good match here between these two, and it needs to feel like it is the final match between these two.
Yeah. I am in agreement.
Yep. So moving on from that particular big segment, which incidentally they did by actually lowering the whole cage down just so that they could have that interview segment inside the Hell in a Cell cage. Um, we are taken to Kathy Kelly, who is backstage interviewing Braun Strowman, and she's asking him, "How do you feel about what has? How do you feel about this huge match that he has going in against Bronson Reed?" And he says he's feeling no trepidation heading into the match tonight, and he's going to show the world why they call him the monster amongst all monsters. And at that point, Miz sort of joins into the conversation, and Braun Strowman's like, "Oh, what's up, Miz?" And then before Miz, I think, gets to say hardly anything, out of nowhere comes R-Truth, who we haven't seen since Big Bronson Reed splattered him into oblivion with an
Four.
insane number of tsunamis.
Four tsunamis. I remember that
Four.
because Miz says you got like tsunami 4 times, and he goes, I don't remember that.
I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't remember that. Like, I'm surprised he remembered his own name after that.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but that sort of like steals the show because now like everyone's like, "Oh, our truth is back," and uh, Braun sort of says, "Hey guys, I got to go. I got a match to get ready for," and he leaves, and that leaves Miz and Truth. And Truth is talking to Miz and saying how he doesn't like how Karrion Kross has been picking on Miz lately, and Miz is like, "Karrion's not picking on me." And Truth sort of like just blows past that and says, "Hey, I had a conversation with Adam Pierce, and tonight the Awesome Truth will be taking on AOP." And Miz is like, "AOP? What's that?" And they then conclude that he means the Authors of Pain. And Miz is like, "The Authors of Pain?" And Truth sort of jumps onto Miz and whispers in his ear, the Awesome Truth are back, and it's awesome. And that's how they ended that segment. And that was a pretty good one as well. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
our Truth is a national treasure, and I know everyone was happy to see him come back. And so
Yeah.
that was cool.
And then we had our third match of the night, Judgment Day with Liv Morgan versus the LWO in a six-man tag team match. And I'll keep it short and simple. It was just, for me, another match to establish the Judgment Day, and that's really where that went. And it was also a match that was there to lead up to uh Finn Balor showing up, basically,
Well,
and cutting a promo. Go ahead.
if I'm two things. One, we sort of skipped past a segment in the back where Sami Zayn was talking to Kathy Kelly
Hmm?
about how sick
Oh,
and tired of the disrespect he's been getting from Gunter, um,
oh, okay,
and
okay.
how he's not going to lose sleep because he knows he's good enough to become the world heavyweight champion, and he isn't going to just go gently into the night. He'll not stop until he gets his shot at the world heavyweight championship. And it was a pretty straightforward segment of Sammy
Yeah,
saying, I'm not going to take no for an answer.
yeah. Sorry,
And
Sammy.
and then I do agree that the 6-man match with the Judgment Day versus the LWO is just kind of a their match, but I do have to give some props to the LWO on this match.
Mhm.
I've been saying for the last couple of weeks of Dragon Lee and of Cruz del Toro and uh, Wild, that what's Wild's first name?
I I knew it until you asked. How about that?
Oh, yeah, fair enough. But Wild, Del Toro, and Lee, I've said, it's unfortunate that these guys, when they do get a little bit of TV time, they tend to have botches. Well, in this match, they did not. They looked
Yeah,
like a totally revitalized LWO.
that's
Wild
true.
and Cruz Del Toro were both like on point with their maneuvers. And they did some really cool stuff. Like there was a spot in the match where all three members of the Judgment Day were on the mat, and each member of the LWO took turns delivering a corner top rope move. I
Mhm.
think uh, I think the first one was Dragon Lee. Um, let's see, what did he do? I'm trying to remember the specific moves, but it was really cool because they did it one right after the other. Um, let's see. I think, yeah, okay. Dragon Lee hit just a flying splash, and
Uh-huh.
then Cruz del Toro landed a really nice somersault senton, aka swanton bomb, and it looked fantastic. And then Wild tops it off with a picture perfect 450 splash, and between that and their dives out of the ring and just everything, they didn't have any botches, and they looked really good. So I did want to stop and give them props for looking solid in the ring
Yeah.
instead of,
That's fair. That's fair.
being luchadors that botch their moves.
That's
So
fair. Yeah.
a good showing from the LWO,
Yeah.
even though, as you pointed out, um, as it looked like the match was going to go maybe in favor of the LWO for once, because I believe Wild had, was it Carlito set up for another big aerial move? Um, then we end up with the ref getting distracted by Liv Morgan, which allows Finn Balor to come
Yeah.
out of nowhere and shove Wild off the top turnbuckle. And no, it wasn't Carlito that was in
It
the
was
ring, it was JD
McDonough.
McDonough.
Yeah.
And after he bounces off of the top rope, effectively kind of like clotheslining himself with the top rope, he turns around and McDonough hits him with the devil inside to pick up the victory.
Yeah.
And it was at this point when Finn Balor showed up that,
No.
like we pointed out, like Joe Tessitore was just completely blown away. He was like, I thought he wasn't here. And it's
Yeah.
like,
It was.
he
Yeah.
said he
It
was
was
going to
the.
be here soon.
exactly, yes. But it was the so Liv Morgan distracts the referee, and Finn Balor is the one that shoved Wild off the top turnbuckle, and then that's when Tesseract lost his shit. Apparently,
Yep. Yep.
he like apparently Finn Balor grew magic wings and teleported with his wings there, and that just surprised. I don't know what, but
He
he
was
was
like,
like,
I
"He's
thought he had
supposed to
travel
not be
issues.
here. He was having travel issues," and we're like, "Yeah,
He,
he
he was so
was."
surprised by
Tesseract,
it.
you all right, my guy? You want a drink, buddy? You okay?
Even
He
though
was.
earlier in the evening, all of the Judgment Day had stated that he was delayed, but he'll be here soon.
I mean,
Like, it wasn't like, I'll be
Dominic
lucky if I
said
can
like
make
three
it.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
we heard Finn literally say over the phone, having some travel issues, but I'll be there shortly. Like, the our plan for this evening is still, still
Yeah.
good. That thing that we talked about still got like, and then Dominic turns around and says to the rest of the group, that was Finn. He's having some travel issues, but he'll be here soon or shortly. So we knew that he was gonna be here. You know who
Yep.
didn't know?
So
Tesseract.
it
Tesseract
was
was table flipping. He was. It was like when a human shows a chimpanzee a magic trick, and that chimp is like
his life
like
is
that.
fundamentally different now.
That there was Tesseract. He did not know what to do with
Yeah.
himself.
He was so shocked. He was like,
He
I can't believe
screamed.
it.
He went offline, and then he rolled into a little ball and became a DVD. Like everything changed for him.
It
Everything.
did. And so that was funny how surprised Tessitore seemed by what I don't think anybody but him was surprised by, because anyone who
Yeah.
listened to the phone call didn't sound like Finn was not going to make it there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No, no.
So,
The key takeaway was he was running late, but he would be there.
yeah, running late.
Um.
It's not like he's like, I'm still in like Dublin or something, I'm not going to
Yeah.
make it tonight, guys.
Yeah. He didn't
Um
say anything about riding his rainbow to get there or nothing. He
to
was
get to the pot of gold.
gonna
Yeah.
make it.
So,
And almost as if to satiate Tesseract, his bloodthirsty, blood curdling scream for some sort of explanation, and to prove that he wasn't seeing the spirit of Finn Balor. Finn Balor grabs the microphone and he starts talking so that
yep.
Tesseract knows he's real.
Yep.
Um,
And
and
he
he
goes
goes,
on to,
Damien,
yeah.
I heard what you said last week. That he was doing that. You gotta rip my hurt. Yeah. And then he says in the worst Spanish accent ever,
The absolute
um,
worst.
that he didn't have a heart. Uh,
I
and that
think he was like, no tango de corazon.
yeah, yeah, amigo, and a lot of people should know.
No tango de corazon.
No tango de corazon. Yeah. And
Yep.
then he
And then he
says, "I
goes,
don't have a heart." And, he says it in English, so that people
mhm,
with ears and people who speak Spanish can know what he says, because I'm sure that those who speak Spanish do not feel that was Spanish. So he explained what it was, and that at Bad Blood, he was going to prove to the world that it was Damien that needed them, and that he uh Damien needed Finn, and that the Judgment Day never needed Damian Priest. And then
sure.
Liv Morgan, and I wrote this down. I wrote this down when I heard it that like last night. Liv Morgan said that she was gonna prove that she was a home wrecking, man stealing, heartbreaking, title taking, greatest women's world champion of all time. And I thought to myself, the only part of that you need to prove is the last. You've already proven everything else.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm like,
you've
you've
seen the
set
story.
yourself up, Liv. Like, because all Rhea would have to do is then say, "Cool." Then once I take your women's world champion, all that's left is a home wrecking horror. I mean,
Pretty
that's what
much.
she said.
And then Rhea, thankfully, comes out and with a mic and starts her promo, starts talking her mess. She tells Liv that she was with Dom for a very long time, and she knows all about his dirty little secrets.
Blech,
Um,
gross.
yeah. That. But then she asks for them to bring out the shark cage for some dramatic effect, which is hilarious. One of the secrets that Dom has, you see, is that he's extremely claustrophobic, and so the guys bring out this very tiny cage, and Rhea says that Bad Blood when uh Dominic is locked inside of that shark cage, crying, soiling himself, uh, cleaning himself off with his brand new merch. Then he's gonna have the best seat in the house to watch his little girlfriend realize that with when all when all when she's in there all alone, that she's not as good as Rhea. Uh, and that he was gonna watch her win the title that she never lost. And then she says, "But as for tonight, I think we're done talking." And that at that time, Damien has made his way into the ring, and he
Snuck up
is
behind him.
and he's standing behind the gentleman inside of the ring. Now, Damien puts up one hell of a fight. I'm not sure how, but at some point, uh, Dominic ends up down the ramp. Um, and Rhea is just beating the snot out of him. Liv tries to intervene, but when she's met face to face with Rhea, she runs.
Yep.
Like when Rhea sees that she's coming, she takes out running. And she did it like 2 or 3 times in like the span of 10 seconds, and then she just runs backstage, and Rhea turns her attention back to Dominic and gets him into the cage. And she's about to close the door when her back is turned to the home wrecking whore. Um, and of course she runs and sucker punches her from behind. And then the heat goes there, and they're having a fight outside. Um, in the ring, Damian Priest is giving it to Judgment Day. Honestly,
Yep.
he's holding his own by himself, but
Hmm.
eventually they get the upper hand and they overpower him. And Finn gives him what, two or
Three.
three
Yeah.
three coup de grace.
Three coup de
Um,
grace.
yeah, and basically the Judgment Day lays out the Terror Twins, and that's the end. So
Close to that segment.
they're doing their very best to make sure that Judgment Day looks dominant, and I'll give it to them. They're doing their best. Carlito, I'm still not sold with, but they're doing, I think, a good job at keeping this faction on top when they lost two of the biggest names that they could have lost in
Yeah.
that faction.
The
I think
two
they're doing,
most significant.
yeah, exactly. So I think they're doing a bang up job.
Yep.
Um,
Now let me ask you, because we generally tend to notice that there's like a bit of a formula in WWE. Now, admittedly, we've seen breaks in that formula, like Jay winning on Monday Night Raw, the IC
mhm.
belt. But uh, I know that when Rhea was attacking and had the up on Liv and Dominique, you had said that that means Rhea's going to lose at Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Now, having seen the entirety of this segment, we saw Rhea kind of have the up on Dominic and Liv, at least for a while during that portion. But we also saw Damian Priest get absolutely obliterated by the male members of the Judgment Day, and again receive just a bucket of coup de grace that results in the Judgment Day flexing over the top of him. So, all of those things being equal, what do you predict for the outcomes of Rhea's match and the outcome of Damian's?
I think that I think out of all the members of this interaction, the person that needs to be established the most is Liv Morgan. So I think Liv Morgan's going to win her match against Rhea. And I think they've done a bang up job of making the men competitors, or the men in in Judgment Day, look good, look dominant. Together, they seem to be a force to be reckoned with, and they try to make it as if Finn Balor stands out above the rest. And I think they've done a good job at that. So I think that when it comes to the match between him and Damien, Damien's gonna win. Damien has been on the L with this particular situation pretty much since its began. Whereas Rhea has seemed to have the upper hand every single time. Now she gets her beatings. Like Liv gives it to her, but she gets more of a comeuppance. She gets more of like, like sometimes headbutts without any, without any repercussion. Like she gets that
Hmm.
a lot. And she still looks dominant in this particular situation where Liv just doesn't yet. So it's gonna have to be a match where Liv Morgan holds her own in the ring against Liv. And maybe something happens where there's a distraction and Liv gets that win. Maybe. But there's gonna have to be a lot of time in that ring where Liv really puts it to her for anybody to see her as a viable champion. If not, then let's quit let's quit BSing and give Rhea her belt back, please. Uh so that we can continue her dominant reign over the women's division. Um as far as Damien is concerned, Finn doesn't need to be put over as much. Finn has proven himself a dominant force in the ring, and he's especially proven himself as the unofficial yet official leader of the new Judgment Day, uh, as being a force to be reckoned with. And he's gotten his comeuppance on Damien several times. So I think when they get in the ring, it's gonna be Damien's time. I think Damien will win that match. Now I could be wrong. It could be the other way around. But I honestly believe that on for the belt, I don't think that belt's moving off of Live yet.
I could dig that. I could totally see that. I think they're walking a weird fine line where they're trying to still put the Judgment Day as a threat without burying Damien and Rhea in the process.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody with eyes thinks that Damien couldn't beat any member of the
No.
Judgment Day in a one-on-one
Yeah.
match. Hell, and even in a handicap match. But it's only when the numbers are like 3 and 4 on one that they have a shot. And it really is the numbers game that is the whole story for the Judgment Day. And I think it needs to stay that way. I know we've talked about how Liv
Yeah.
needs to like establish her credibility, but I'm not sure if this is the right group to do it with because the entire Judgment Day, which she's a part of, really only has the numbers game advantage. None of them are good enough to actually defeat believably either of the two Terror Twins in a straight up match. So
I
it
agree.
has to be some kind of shenanigans or numbers game thing.
Yeah.
And to that end, if Liv wins and manages to walk out with the belt at Bad Blood, I have to see that being some kind of shenanigan.
Oh
Or
yeah, I
utilizing
think so.
utilizing the fact that they're in a cage, and so maybe she could equalize the just pure physical dominance difference with some weaponry. But it has to be something like that. Like there's no universe that I think Liv Morgan beats Rhea Ripley in an actual straight up contest,
No,
like
no, no.
ever. And
Nope.
if you tried to give me that, you don't actually so much put Liv over as you bury Rhea's credibility. And the same goes for as much as they've been trying to build up Damian Priest, giving him the world championship belt and establish him as a hugely dominant big man, perhaps the most dominant big man on Raw. Um, the only way it goes any other direction besides, Damian Priest winning against Finn Balor is if the numbers game or some kind of other equalizing, cheating, shenanigans maneuver occurs.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on how straight of a match you get out of either of these two
I,
scenarios.
to be perfectly honest, I don't think any of these matches are going to be straight. Like I think there's going to be some interference from both. I just don't think that the men's match will end the way Judgment Day wants it to end. Whereas I kind of suspect that the women's will.
Yeah. I also think it depends on how long they want the Judgment Day versus the Terror Twins to continue to be a thing.
That's also
Um,
true.
if they're not bringing that story arc to a head here at Bad Blood, then I think you're right. If they are, then Damien and Rhea win
Yeah.
definitively, and Rhea
Yeah.
becomes the new world's women's champion again, and then both of them move on to something other than the Judgment Day, which I think is why they broke them up in the first place.
Yeah. That will essentially bury Judgment Day, and I mean, I don't know what to do about that. They're gonna have to find something to pull themselves out of that because that could be potentially um faction killing. That's a faction killer.
Um, Maybe, but I don't know. I think they could roll with that punch because it's the Terror Twins, right? Of course, you're not going to beat them in the long run. But
Yeah, but
if you've managed to establish that Judgment Day is still alive and kicking with their departure, you now have a decently good faction that can do all of the faction things. The whole point of a faction is that it's about the numbers game.
yeah.
And if they continue to leverage that, you could have some real good faction on faction stuff.
Yeah,
Like
but
right
this
now,
isn't a very eye-catching faction, and I think you know what I mean by that. There's no one person in this faction that's like, "Oh man, I gotta see this group." Without the heat from the Terror Twins, and without those two in the Judgment Day, and then they get buried by the Terror Twin. I don't know, man. I feel like the interest for that faction will die pretty quick. They'll end up in
mm,
LWO territory.
maybe. I mean, it could certainly go that way, but let's face it. Ultimately, WWE has decided that for whatever reason, probably because it's stagnating their two of their top stars at this point, Damian Priest
Yeah.
and Rhea Ripley,
Mm-hmm.
that Damian and Rhea have to come out of the faction. And
Yeah.
so, if whichever way that ends up going, and I think it ultimately has to end with the Terror Twins on top, um, the Judgment Day is going to have to come out of it one way or the other. I mean, because it's already a done deal that the Terror Twins are out of the Judgment Day. So the Terror Twins can't continue to faff around with the Judgment Day. Otherwise, why did you take them out? You might as well
Yeah.
just kept them in there. So, where the Judgment Day goes from that is going to be like a combination of booking with, Finn and Liv and Dominic and Carlito and JD rising up um, to make themselves interesting. And that's going to be on them. I mean, otherwise, you're just asking Rhea and Damien to carry the Judgment Day. Which, again, if that's all that you needed them to do, like if that's what you wanted them to be
Yeah. Then
doing,
you should have left him in there
you
then.
should have left them in there. So since
Yeah.
this cat's out of the bag, that you have broken up these members out of the Judgment Day, then you have to have some plan for what the Judgment Day does afterwards. Unless you just want that faction to break up and go the way of the dodo, which, if that's the case, then so be it. But there does have to be a point where Judgment Day exists as the Judgment Day if that faction isn't going to fade out without having to lean still on Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley's draw power. They have to
Yeah.
become their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um. So after the Judgment Day, lays out the Terror Twins. We got a Sheamus vignette, uh, where he is he's still, I think he's still giving Pete Dunne the business. But
Hmm.
I don't know if that vignette was about that per se, or if it was just a Sheamus is a badass type vignette.
If I remember correctly, it was an interview segment. I can't remember if it was Jackie or someone
Oh,
else,
that's right.
but they
Yes,
were
yes.
asking him. Was well, actually, I don't know if it was an interview so much as him playing directly to the camera. And he's talking like he cut a mad promo on Butch and talks about how he's going to continue to call him Butch,
Yeah.
and that if Butch really wants to go, there's only one way they can handle this, and that's with a Donnybrook match.
That yep, yep, yep.
And so it was a huge vignette for a setup of Sheamus and Butch having a Donnybrook match, which is basically a street fight, but it's themed like an Irish pub.
Yeah.
So and he invited Butch to bring his cricket bats, and he'll bring his shillelagh, and get ready for a banger.
Yeah. They'll have a they'll have a great time. Um and then after that, oh, we had yesterday Pete Rose, WWE Hall of Famer, passed away at the age of 83. So there was
Yeah.
uh, a small vignette about that.
I know he was world famous for his accomplishments in baseball. I will forever remember him as being the man who took some hella tombstone pile drivers and choke slams from Kane when he came out.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Pete Rose.
Yeah. After that, Damage Control promo. Uh, and that was pretty good. It was actually pretty. It was a pretty strong promo.
Hmm.
I particularly would like to make note of Kyrie, who who in English uh dropped some mean bars, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Kyrie Sane actually cuts a really solid promo, and she has a unique and cool sounding voice. Like she should be, if she ever decides to get out of wrestling. And I'm
yeah,
not suggesting that she should. I'm just saying if she chooses a different way to go, she should absolutely do voice acting for anime because she's got that like anime evil girl like voice,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
perfect.
yeah. You're right. She does. Um, And I mean, and EO cuts a mean promo too. Like, she's saying
Hmm.
that she was already in Bianca's head, and she's gonna be living rent free forever in her head when she takes back, well, when they take back the tag team titles.
And Damage
Mic
Control
drop.
stands at the top of the women's division once again.
Yeah, mic drop.
Massive
We
mic drop. No, really, really mad props to Damage Control for cutting a mean
mhm.
promo. And after watching Io credibly have a straight up victory on Bianca Belair, I'm altogether more excited about the prospect of Damage Control facing off against Jade and Bianca than I ever was about Unholy Union.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, So I'm here for it. I'd like to see that match. And like you said, yeah, the match between Io and Bianca was a great selling point. It was a great way to basically get people on board for this match and make it a believable one. And I see it now, and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think this is a good display, like, because Damage Control not terribly different than the situation that we were just talking about with the Judgment Day, right? They separated from Bailey, which kind of was their star power, and then they had to find a way to make it, on their own. And I find it very good to see that Io Sky and Kairi Sane seem to be stepping up to that challenge.
yeah,
Unfortunately, Dakota Kai seems to have a really bad time with staying healthy. Like she comes back for like a couple weeks at a time, maybe has like
yeah,
half a match, and she's injured again. So I don't know what to say about the future of that situation, but I am really looking forward to when Asuka is healthy again from, I think she went for knee surgery.
I think so.
Um, I think. when she comes back, then you have a very strong damage control with Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Io Sky. Like that
Yeah.
could really be, incredible. I'm again not so sure about what the future looks like with Dakota Kai. Like she's so injury prone that it's hard to gain any momentum for her
Yeah.
because again she can't stay healthy in the ring long enough.
Yeah, I wish her all the best. I know that right before she got injured yet again, she was, you know, basically frustrated
Hmm.
um about
And
where
pushing for
where
some
her
singles matches.
yeah, about where she was going. Uh so I'm hoping, man, because I've seen this kind of thing like happen where it takes out a competitor and they come back and they're just not the same, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
take a good long look at Sonya right now.
yeah, and
And I mean, being out of the ring that long does do something. Like ring rust is a thing. I know
yeah,
that commentators like to throw that out literally every time a wrestler is gone for a week. But I mean, a month or more. Yeah, no, that's a thing. So I'm hoping that she can get back in there and make a go of it.
yeah.
Um,
I am too. But I do know, like, if you're a wrestler that's well established and you have long stints where you're injury free, and then you have like an injury that takes you out for a few months, that's a very different problem than if you're a wrestler who can't stick around for more than a month or two at a time before you're injured all over again. Like that is almost impossible for the audience to invest in. That's almost impossible for booking to be able to do anything with you. And it really strikes at the faith of a company to try and put any real accolades or storylines or anything behind you because you're not going to be here in a month. Like that's the record you're establishing. So it's incredibly damaging, I think, for Dakota Kai's career that she keeps being out or and sidelined as often as she does. I can't think of anything more detrimental than someone who is repeatedly and regularly injury prone because that's just not
yep,
something that any promotion can do anything with you then.
yeah, yeah. She's the female CM Punk. All right,
Yeah.
settle
Shots
down,
fired.
everyone,
Hey,
settle
Drew made
down,
the point.
everyone.
Drew did make the point in his promo. I know we didn't cover it line by line, but Drew did
Yeah.
say, CM Punk, you've only been here a year and you've been injured for 4 months of it. Come on, man. So that's a valid
Oh
point.
man.
It's not just a
Yeah.
ding that we're making as not CM Punk fans.
Yeah.
So,
You brittle
that
man.
it's very valid that it is difficult for, again, like I said, the audience to invest or the company to find out how to utilize you when you're not going to be there regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite brittle. He's brittle, that one. All right.
Very
That's enough.
like brittle Brian Danielson, right? Um,
That's
but
enough of that.
moving on from Damage Control's incredible promo, like really mad props to Io Sky and Kairi Sane. We are brought to the fourth match of the night, which is Kofi Kingston with Xavier Woods coming out to ringside versus Chad Gable with American Made at ringside. And for a good portion of this match, Chad Gable and Kofi Kingston are having an absolute banger. Gable was looking really good in particular.
Yep. Yep.
Not
Yep.
not that Kofi didn't look good too, but like Gable especially, like fighting fit, throwing mean looking suplexes,
Yeah.
um, just nasty stuff. And for the most part, American Made didn't end up making much of a difference to this match.
Yeah.
The signature piece of outside interference that took place was a point when Kofi Kingston uh, throws Gable to the ropes and then attempts to intercept Gable with a Trouble in Paradise, but that never connects because Xavier Woods reaches in to trip Gable, which only succeeded in sabotaging Kofi's attempt at Trouble in Paradise.
Yeah.
And then following that, um, Woods is all like annoyed that he seems to have messed up his partner, and that ends up leading to uh, Gable connecting with the chaos theory out of the corner on Kofi Kingston for the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And we sort of end that particular match with Kofi sitting on the apron and Woods trying to mea culpa and apologize for his interference, but it looks like Kofi's not really feeling that.
Yeah.
Um, so that
Kofi
kind of
will get
leaves
over it. Isaiah's a nice
maybe
boy.
maybe, but it sort of left a
Isaiah.
big question mark on what's happening with Woods, what's happening with the Judgment Day. So it was good
Mr.
in that
Weed's a
regard.
nice boy. He's fine. Mr.
It's true.
Mr. Coffee will get over it.
He might, but I don't know. The tensions are mounting in the New Day.
Mr.
So
Kingman's being negative.
I don't know. Maybe in the near future, the New Day will be experiencing their last day as a tag
Yeah.
team.
I mean, they keep talking about the 10-year anniversary for New Day coming up. And I don't know. I am personally here for one of them going heel because who I think the audience will implode. There might actually be children that will cry if Xavier Woods betrays Kofi or does something of a heel turn. I think WWE will single-handedly uh change the rotation of planet Earth's polars, and and the world will go inside out if one of them goes heels. A heels, Jesus.
Potentially.
And I'm here for it. Let's go. Let's go.
Yep. So moving on
Give
from
us
that,
something different.
indeed. Moving on from that, we have a segment in the back where Jackie Redmond is interviewing. Now, this time she's interviewing Bronson Reed. And she mentions that it seems like Seth Rollins is going to be back soon. And Reed says, excellent. He's excited that Seth will be back. Now he'll have the opportunity to take years off of Seth's life instead of months off his career. And he then goes on to declare that he will be the last monster standing by the end of the night.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. And then we cut to a small video package, kind of a picture-in-picture thing where Joe Tessitore informs us that Ilya Dragunov tore his ACL over the weekend during a live event in Columbus, Georgia, and wishes the Mad Dragon a speedy recovery. Ooh, ACL tear. That could actually be a couple few months out for Ilya.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm
That
sad about it.
Yeah, you hate to see it, especially since it looked like they were trying to set up some storylines for Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah.
I'm a big
With the
fan of
new,
Ilya
not with the
Dragunov
new day, with the Judgment Day, which would
with the
have,
Judgment Day.
yeah, which would have kept that Judgment Day heat going for somebody.
Very
But
fresh with a brand new competitor. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm very sad at the timing of this for that storyline and Ilya Dragunov and everything.
yeah,
I can only agree with the wishing for a speedy recovery for the Mad Dragon.
yep,
After that, we move into a segment where Gunter makes his way to the ring and lets everyone know that life as the world heavyweight champion has been fantastic. He loves every aspect of being the heavyweight champion, being the top guy, the money, the luxuries, the amenities. But there's one thing that he really hates about his life right now, and that is the insult that he has to deal with in terms of Sami Zayn every single week. And he says he could not ask for anybody more annoying than Sami Zayn, a man that comes here week to week. And of course, you know the rule. You say the name, they come to the ring.
yeah. He's
So
like a treasure troll. You're
they
basically,
cue up Sami Zayn's music,
yeah. Here he comes.
and here he comes.
Oh, yep. Let's
And
go.
so we end up with Sammy in the ring, and he grabs a mic and he says to Gunter, if you find it so annoying dealing with me every single week, there's a very easy way to put an end to this once and for all. All you have to do is give me what I keep asking for and put your heavyweight
Ooh.
championship on the line one-on-one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's like, but you're not going to do it, will you? You won't do it, and I know why. And deep down, Gunter, I think you know why too. And so why don't you just tell me right here to my face? Tell me right now why you won't do it. And Gunter responds with, "I've tried to tell you. I've tried to beat it into you. It's because you're not on my level." And Sammy's
Yeah,
like, "Well,
yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
not on your level, how come I'm the one guy that was able to beat you at WrestleMania for your Intercontinental belt?"
Shots
And
fired.
just to kind of move through it a little quick, because I think we've conveyed the general idea here, Gunter says, "You know, you're right, Sammy. I am afraid. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for my reputation. Because after all the legendary things I did with the IC belt and my run, losing to a better man would have not been a problem. But I lost to you, which is the biggest embarrassment of my career." And
Damn.
so after a bit more back and forth, Gunter conveys a story about how his father was at WrestleMania too, and he had to look his father in his eyes when he asked, or when he said, "I flew all the way from Vienna to Philadelphia just to watch you lose against that bum Sami Zayn." And and Sammy, went in on it and said, "Did you ever ask for a rematch? No, you tucked your tail between your legs and disappeared. Didn't show your face here because you couldn't show your face here, and because your dad made you feel like a loser. Well, now you're showing your dad that his son is also a coward." And that
Ooh.
that just gets Gunter to clothesline Zayn and kick the crap out of him. Um, and Zayn tries
That's
to
it.
catch like a little bit of a comeback, but when he runs for the haluva kick at Gunter, Gunter puts him in a sleeper hold briefly and then flips him around and hits him with like a very prejudicial power bomb and goes on to say, "So you want this so bad, Sammy? You got your match." And Sammy, once he is, not delirious any longer, is pretty happy about it. And he said, "I got you," or he mouthed it, anybody who can read lips, you could tell.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so now we finally have officially Gunter versus Sami Zayn for the World Championship.
And for me, that's all they really needed to do to give me some heat and for me to feel like this is something that I want to see again. Um, I think it was
Yeah,
getting Gunther to give him a physical response, and I think that's what did it for me. And also, I mean, Sammy did get his ass kicked, but Gunther helped him get a move because he did the one thing that you should not do. He literally pushed Sammy into the corner.
yep. You keep Sammy out of the corner, or
I'm
you're gonna
like,
lose.
don't do that. And what happens? What happens?
Yeah, Gunter needs to go to Pierce and ask for like the first ever completely circular ring match, so that there are no corners that Sammy can
Oh my god,
use.
that'd be hilarious.
Like that would be the best. Um,
That would be hilarious.
I do
Um,
have to say, I think you're absolutely right. They could have just cut this particular promo, especially the part where he said his stuff about, I'm worried about how it damages my reputation because losing to a better man would have been one thing, but I lost to you. And then Sammy saying, "Well, it seems like you ran and hid because your dad made you feel like a loser. Well, now, you see, you get to show your dad that you're also a coward." And I think that exchange would have been enough. Like going all the way to Canada to get Bret Hart to be like, "Yeah, you're a coward, a cowardly McCoward coward." That did nothing. Like none of that
yeah,
felt
yeah,
right
yeah,
until this interaction where,
yeah,
okay, this is some legit stuff right here. Now I'm invested. And I'll be perfectly honest. My prediction is that Gunter is going to raffle stomp Sami Zayn because
yeah,
Gunter has this remarkable habit of going back and like correcting the record whenever he has lost by
yeah,
obliterating whoever did it to him. And I kind of think that's where we're going with this. Like,
yeah,
Sammy got the IC belt, but now it's Sammy's turn to, make to put Gunter back on top.
yeah.
Yeah, you agree?
Yep, I do. Yeah,
I can dig it.
yeah, I tend to see the same thing here. I mean, if Sammy were to win again, would that bury Gunther? No, not at all. Um, but what would be the point of that? Um, neither one of these men really need to be established anymore. Um, but what I would know, I would like to know what the story would be for them having Sammy beat Gunther every time they get in the ring.
Yeah.
Because Gunther is such a fierce competitor that no one else has been able to pin him, right? Several
Yep.
people have pinned Sammy though. So what are we saying if we're saying that Sammy is the one guy that Gunther can't beat? Huh? Sammy? Listen, I'm not talking shit about Sammy, but I'm saying Gunther has been in the ring with bigger, stronger competitors that have beat Sammy, these guys. So how is it that they can beat Sammy, but Gunther is that one guy that can't beat Sammy? It would just be a very weird storyline for them to go on, unless there's going to be a series of matches between these guys. In which case, why Sami Zayn?
Well, and
Again, nothing against Sami Zayn, nothing, but
yeah.
why?
No, I fully agree, and I don't think it would be that interesting for anybody. I think Gunter also, and I kind of skipped past this because it was a long back and forth between him and Sammy. But
Yeah.
Gunter also sort of made the point that he somewhat underestimated Sammy because he was caught up trying to embarrass Sammy in front of his own family. That eventually that's what happened to him at Sammy's
Mm-hmm.
hands. So it paints the picture that Gunter is no longer taking Sami Zayn lightly. And that
Yep.
is, if that's the case, then, you can presume that there's your reason for how the outcome could be very different this time.
Yes.
Um, and so I really do think there's more value in this being a correct the record and put Gunter back up on his like near untouchable pedestal. Um, because you're right, it doesn't make sense any other way, and it doesn't go anywhere that's particularly interesting. Like a
No.
feud with Gunter and Sami Zayn is like the least interesting championship run for Gunter I could possibly conceive of.
Yep.
So, getting this out of the way and moving past it, I think is good. Because it'll be Gunter being able to, correct the record, sort of show that, maybe it was him underestimating Sammy that allowed for the fluke win. And I think that would be better in the long run than the alternative where Sami Zayn manages to win the belt off of him. Come on.
No. I just don't see the point of them doing that again. I'm not saying they
No,
wouldn't, right?
and if
I'm not
one,
saying they wouldn't, but why?
yeah, and if one fluke loss against Sami Zayn didn't bury Gunter, two losses for two different championships would absolutely bury Gunter.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that said, coming to the fifth match, it is the Awesome Truth versus the Authors of Pain with the Final Testament.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and we
Short and
get
sweet.
the
This one.
it was we get the full entrance of the Awesome Truth, including them singing together with Miz slightly off key. Um, and we begin the match with our Truth in the ring versus Razar of the Authors of Pain, and I mean, not for nothing. Truth is in there with a guy who looks like he outweighs him by at least 100, 150 pounds. And Truth is just bringing it to this dude.
Yeah.
Um, Truth is way underrated for what he can do in the ring.
True.
He ends up hitting him with the 5 moves of doom from his idol that he grew up watching, John Cena.
Yeah.
And he gets the 5 knuckle shuffle. Let's start with the beginning. He hits him with 2 leaping shoulder blocks, a spinning side slam, and then the 5 knuckle shuffle, and then attempts the attitude adjustment. And that's where it sort of stops for Truth, because at that point he struggles to lift a guy as big as Razar up for that. And
Yeah.
instead, Razar grabs up Truth over his shoulder and plants him with a Dominator. And then proceeds to scream in a very high pitched voice
In
in
the
a
most
foreign language at the whole crowd.
At the most non-dominant voice ever.
Yep, we stopped at that point to talk about how Razor screaming in like a very high alto
Yeah.
at the crowd in a foreign language did not do anything to establish menace. It
Yeah.
felt a lot like the times that Brock Lesnar would scream and his voice would break, and it ended up much more high pitched than you wanted to hear out of the beast.
Yeah.
So Razar and
Know your
Akam
character.
are
Learn your
huge.
character.
Yeah.
You are a giant, dominant force to be reckoned with. You don't need to scream. You just threw this man 30 feet into the air. That proved your point. That was your scream. Stand there and look menacingly. Look at the audience like I dare you to boo me. Do something like that. Convey what you are trying to say without sounding like me when I see a roach. If you can, please, just give it a try. Just give it
Yeah,
a try.
I don't think they necessarily realize sometimes how incredibly undermining it is to them being portrayed as a dominant force when they do crap like that. I already cited Brock Lesnar's voice breaking. I would also like to cite Tomatonga coming out there with the I'm the Tasmanian devil. Like, he already was one of the smaller members of the bloodline. And then him adding to it that he sounds like an upset chihuahua just killed him as any sort of threat. Like they've stopped even in some of the announcing, like talking about those two men as being like, oh, they're super unhinged and dangerous. Now it's all about Jacob because Jacob
Yep.
has not come in there. And I mean, Jacob is so dominant that he can get away with yelling, I love you,
I know you,
Solo.
Solo.
I love you.
I know
and,
you,
and
Solo.
it and it still hasn't fully nuked him as a threat
Solo.
in the ring.
Solo.
Whereas Tamatonga and Tonga Loa are
Solo.
just two
I love you.
complete
Okay.
freaking jokes. Yeah, exactly. So it's unfortunate that they make up half of the current bloodline because between nothing but botches out of Tongaloa and Tamatonga coming across as like an upset, like pocket poodle, it just they mean nothing to that scenario. Like they are doing zero for the bloodline.
I honestly
Um,
feel like in a real life situation, what's the Tasmanian devil's name? What's his name?
uh, Tamatonga.
Yeah, that one. I honestly feel in a real life situation, if he were to get into an altercation with someone, he would get in that person's face, and the person would be like, "Yeah, what are you gonna do?" And I honestly believe that he would then bite that dude's ankles.
That's entirely believable, to be perfectly honest. And it's
He'll do it.
sad because right during establishment, Tamatonga and Tongaloa have failed to make an impact that is positive for either one of them.
Yeah. And
And
I
then they
think maybe
tried,
that's why they're kind of scrambling around for that bloodline storyline right now. Maybe because
possibly.
they weren't expecting these gentlemen to be such weak links. I'm
Well,
so sorry to
I
say it
don't
that
think
way.
it is true though. I don't think they expected Tongaloa to be so terrible in the ring that he misses and botches most of the few spots he's been given. And I don't think they anticipated Tamatonga being so incapable at conveying a menacing character that he turned himself into a joke.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke that's just you and I. Like we've seen videos on the internet where they're making fun of him going. "Ang, ang, 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 ang." So it's definitely a stupidity that the whole world
Oh,
has caught on to, and so good
yeah.
luck. You have
You
buried
hate to see it.
yourselves.
I mean, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. And I don't I it, it's surprising how bad that's turning out. Um I mean, so much so that they don't even really get in the ring to do any matches now. Like all of this is now left on the shoulders of Solo and Jacob.
Yeah, and
That's
I
honestly how
mean,
I feel.
to their credit, Jacob, well, to Jacobs especially, but Solo as well. I mean, they are bringing it,
Yeah,
but I mean, you're trying to convey the bloodline as being four members deep, and you're missing two members.
yeah.
And that's just the unfortunate truth of it.
Yep,
The
yep.
what is it? The Gorillas of Doom or whatever they call themselves that are Tongaloa and
Yeah.
Tamatonga. I
Uh-huh.
mean, they don't have it. Like, remember back when they introduced Solo and we were like, oh, well, we sure hope that this young, commodity from NXT can rise to the challenge. Solo did.
Mhm.
Tama Tonga and Tongaloa? Nope. Sure didn't.
No,
They're
but
in
I mean,
way above their heads.
I don't know whose fault that is. They were not utilized as well as Solo was. Um, and I mean, there really wasn't much establishing who they were either. Um, and then they came in and were supposed to do, like, also on the other side, there were no two men on the same level as these two, as the gorillas of whatever they're supposed to be. And what I mean by that is, when Roman was in charge, uh, and Cody stepped up, Roman didn't immediately go into battle. He had two henchmen that could do his bidding first, right? They don't really have that on the side of Cody. Like, there are no henchmen. You can't really call Kevin Owens a henchman. You can't really
No.
call
Yeah.
Randy Orton a henchman. They're not, right? So you got big names, boom, right out the bat, and they're going against who? The Gorillas of Pain. No one really knows who these dudes are, to be honest. So, but like, there's nobody on the other side, for Cody, who could be the two little men to do this light work, basically. So that, even that's kind of off.
Yeah.
Like, there are
Well,
so
and
many things here, man, that just need to be kind of swept up and kind of fixed and
yeah.
made into something else. Because right now it's kind of lopsided, and which means that Solo and Jacob now have to basically be those two henchmen, while also being the leader and the right hand man.
Yeah.
And you can't
No,
really see
I
them in a
agree.
dominant position when they're playing both parts.
No, and the sad fact of the matter is that they've done such a bad job of it that I think it puts the WWE bookers, I guess, the back office. I don't know how you want to call it, but the decision makers are put in a tough spot. It's like, well, to get you over, we would need to do something cool with you. But every time we've tried to do something cool with you, you've dropped the freaking ball. So
Yeah,
now it looks like they're just leaning on like Jacob Fatu to do it all.
yeah,
And while Jacob is rising to that occasion and it's pushing his stock into the stratosphere, it's completely made Tama Tonga and Tongaloa like inconsequential. They're irrelevant in the biggest storyline or one of the biggest storylines in the WWE right now, and that is
yeah,
not a good spot for either one. But
yeah,
I digress. Back to the events of
yeah.
Awesome Truth and the Authors of Pain. Um, After the Dominator to our Truth, the match sort of goes in favor of Rizar and Akam for a while until Truth finally is able to make his way to the corner when he finally tags in the Miz, and Miz steps immediately into the ring, looks at the Authors of Pain, and then proceeds to drill Truth with a massive big boot. And everyone's jaws hit the floor. Like, I think even AOP are like, what?
Yeah.
Um, and Miz just sort of looks back at AOP and kind of at the crowd, and then angrily like marches out of the ring, ripping his Awesome Truth shirt off and throwing it at the camera.
Mhm.
And everyone's like, what just happened? And
I'll play heel here for a second. I say what happens is what should have happened a long time ago. I love our truth, but he has done nothing but get Miz's ass kicked. He's gotten Miz put into situations that Miz did not want to be in, and then ended up having to take the brunt of. Uh, and so, yeah, I mean, I saw it as inevitable. And then we got Miz trying to have a match, and he can't even have a match because everything that he's trying to do is disregarded by Braun Strowman, who literally said before he went into his match with Bronson, you guys started this. I have to go finish it. And I'm like, how did they start this?
Yep. And it
What
it
does
tends
this
to
have to
make
do with either one of them? So yeah, I
yeah.
have to say I feel absolutely okay with the Miz kicking R-Truth and leaving his ass in the ring
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
this point I would have done the same thing. I don't have a belt anymore because of you. Every
Yeah.
match I get put in that I get my ass kicked in is because of you. Who wants to come out here and fight the Authors of Pain? Are you outside of your mind?
Well, and
It's
I
Taco
think
Tuesday. I'm
you
out.
had been you had been saying for a minute now you prefer Miz as a heel, and I
Yeah,
think you're
absolutely.
getting to see it. And this ties in with like Karrion Cross sort of whispering in the people's ears. And in this one, I feel like that this is actually really good because it's like he's whispering the meta analysis into their ears. It's like, yeah, you were great then, but what about now? And nobody takes you seriously. And then we see that play out, like all of what you just said about truth is correct. And I'm not sure how I agree with you. Like, how is this on them that Braun Strowman decided to intervene? Like
Yeah,
he put his big monstrous foot in the middle of this, not the other way around, and
yeah,
has done nothing but like act like, Miz and Truth are just in his way to go deal with the big shit.
yeah,
And
multiple
so
times.
it does make me wonder if the Miz won't somewhat maybe interfere against Braun Strowman in whatever next happens between these monsters, if anything does.
I honestly expected it, yes. But I mean, and I feel like he'd be justified because I want to point out that even so excuse me. So our truth gets wrecked by Bronson. And then the next match is Miz and Bronson. And then uh uh uh, uh Strowman comes out on that match
And interferes
to
immediately, so Miz can't
immediately
even
interfere.
start the match.
Right. No. I'm talking about when Miz and Bronson originally had a match.
Mm,
Whenever right after he had squashed R-Truth, Miz came in to basically vindicate or to basically give it to him for squashing his tag team partner. Um and then in that match, that's when uh Braun Strowman decides to intervene. Okay, so he didn't intervene in our truth match, but he did come in on Miz's. Nobody asked him to. Nobody like I don't remember any scene where Miz was backstage saying, "Hey, um, my partner got squashed. You're supposed to be our friend. Could you watch my?" I don't remember anything like that. He comes out and he puts himself, like you said, he puts his big boot into the business of Bronson Reed. So they go at it. After that, he says stuff like, no offense, but it takes a monster to destroy a monster, blah blah blah, or whatever. So he's literally saying, I'm gonna take this on myself. No one asked him to. He says it's my job because I'm a monster and so is Bronson. And we got to get out here and have our epic battle. That was
mhm.
his choice. Those were his words. That was the what he decided to do.
Yep.
And then in the middle of uh our truth and Miz having their conversation, you legit say like, we know you got to go get ready. We understand that, sure, but we'll talk later, Miz. You guys started this. They didn't. Now I gotta go finish this. Nani the fuck. Wait,
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, but they didn't start that.
Yeah.
I'm sure our truth was
Exactly.
not going, man, I can't wait for them to stump. I cannot wait to get stumped through the mat. I'm pretty sure Miz wasn't thinking the same thing. So nobody started this. They're
Yeah.
wrestlers going into a match. It was just a weird
Fully
thing to
agree.
say. I mean, I think maybe I'm getting way too serious with it, but I just thought that was a really, really weird thing to say. And Miz going heel, I don't even know if that was. I don't even know if I'd call that going heel. I just
I
kind of
I
feel like Miz got fed
I
up.
Yes, and that's a big part of the heel turn, and the fact that he completely turned on R-Truth, who is like super face with everyone,
He is super
absolutely makes
face.
this
He
like a
is.
Miz heel turn. Um, just to finish up with that segment, after the
Kicking right
Miz,
in his super face.
yeah, after the Miz leaves, Karrion Cross is delighted by the whole situation. And Occam tags in Razar and they hit their big double team move, which I think they call What a Rush, and they pick up the victory on R-Truth, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
And
Yeah.
very interested to see where that particular item leads. Um, then we cut to a segment of Gunter backstage, and I can't remember if it was Kathy Kelly or someone else. But the interviewer asked him kind of in a strained way, like she's trying to be very careful not to make Gunter upset, but she pretty much comes around to the fact that, it looks like Sammy maneuvered his way into getting a heavyweight title opportunity anyhow. And Gunter, was like, I think proceeding to answer that, but Braun Breaker shows up and he's just eyeballing the championship. And Braun says, "Sorry, I just wanted to see it for myself." And Gunter's like, he looks over at Ludwig Kaiser and says, "He really is a badass." And Braun's like, "Yeah, I am, and you'll be seeing me sooner than you think." And so that is a much more interesting interaction than anything having to do with Sami Zayn, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. You ain't you. Not only in your opinion. Yeah, and mine's as well. Probably a lot of people. Not that we
Yep.
don't like Sammy. It's just come on. Who would want to see that match? I know.
Yeah,
I freaking would.
I absolutely would like to see Braun Breaker come after the world title. I think him and Gunter could have a real slobber knocker of a match.
Ooh, they could. Yeah.
Hmm. And they also note that Sheamus, they reiterate that Sheamus is going to be taking on Pete Dunne, aka Butch, in the Donnybrook match next week.
Yeah.
So these aren't matches that I think are going to be on Bad Blood, but I think they're going to be on the next episode of Raw.
Yeah. I
Um,
think so.
but after that, we are brought to the main event of the night. And this is a main event that I am so excited for, and that's Braun Strowman versus Bronson Reed in a last monster standing match. And just to kind of give away the ghost here, this was match of the night, and
Yeah.
so much good to be said about it. But
If
I'll review the events of the match before I get to my kind of thoughts on that.
yeah.
So this is a match of pretty much chain high spots. Both men come out to the ring, and Strowman comes down like he's hot. He steps over the top rope and immediately clotheslines Reed, and that sets the tone for this match. Then Reed is thrown towards the ropes and ducks under two clotheslines, and Reed like just careens into him with what looked like a flying crossbody or maybe a flying forearm smash.
Yeah.
And they end up outside the ring, and Strowman sends Reed chest first into some steel steps. And Strowman repeatedly hits Reed with the ring stairs. And sorry, they're outside the ring near the announce table, I should say. And Strowman goes and gets the steel steps and kind of walks half, or did he go all the way up? I think he only went halfway up him because the dude's 6'8", and then he
Yeah.
proceeds to choke slam Big Bronson Reed. Like Big Bronson Reed, mind you, is a huge dude. He choke slams him through the announce table, and so early on, we've already got Reed like getting counted out to a count of 6.
Yeah.
But he does get back up, and during the break, Reed had regained control of the match. And we see that there's a chair contraption set up on the floor. It's like 4 or 5 chairs set up in a position that makes you think someone's going to suicide dive out the ring. And
Yeah.
between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, we're like, who? Who's going to do this? Neither of these guys are like Darby Allin or anything. What's going to happen here? And initially, it looks like Reed is going to try and like deadlift suplex Strowman into the
Yeah.
chairs, and we're like, no
No
way.
way. Nope.
But
Not happening.
Strowman breaks out of it with a headbutt, and then he runs to the opposite end of the ring and bounces off the ropes and comes back and hits Strowman with like a running shoulder block. And Reed gets sent flying backwards into those chairs. And this is a monstrous bump for a guy as big as Reed to take
Yeah.
through these chairs, and he did. And we were just like jaws on the floor about this.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's it. Reed's dead. Um, that actually got to a count of 8 before Reed was able to get up. And then they start fighting kind of out towards the stage at this point because, the count took place outside the ring near the entrance ramp. And Strowman and Reed head towards the stage, and Reed drives Strowman face first into the LED video wall. But
Mhm.
it didn't do anything. Like, you and I were both surprised that they didn't
Yeah.
even do the glitch out that sometimes happens when they run them into the video wall.
Yeah. We were like,
Um,
"Aw."
and they Reed grabs a steel chair, and I think Strowman was able to like punch him or something before he got a hit off with the chair, and then Strowman takes the chair and like just starts whacking on Reed, and he sort of like hits and guides Reed all the way up to like some production crates that are conveniently like shaped like stairs. And so they go way up on these production crates, like maybe 6-7 feet off the ground. And Strowman again tries to go for a choke slam. This time it would be a much bigger choke slam off the top of these production crates through some tables that are down below. And it would be a heck of a drop. This looked like it might be like an 8-foot drop. Um, and Reed rakes Strowman's eyes and instead picks up Strowman on top of these production crates into a Death Valley driver position and then proceeds to Death Valley driver himself and Strowman through these two tables that are like way down below. And we're like, they're both dead now. They're both dead now.
Mhm.
But Reed manages to get to his feet pretty quick, and it takes Strowman until the 8 count. And then they proceed to start fighting again, and Strowman clotheslines Reed over the ringside barricade. And let's see, Reed, I think, reverses it into the ring stairs, and they work their way back over to kind of the announcer barricade. And this time, Reed delivers a massive pounce to Strowman. And Strowman just goes completely through the barricade, and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
And we get another count here. And I think Reed then speared Strowman through another security barricade.
Yep.
And this time, it nearly wipes out the entire front row. And
Yeah.
so at this point, because the barricade between the action and the fans has been dismantled, the referee and a whole bunch of like security come out there to try and deal with that. And in the meantime, Reed rolls Strowman back in the ring and then connects with like first one big giant tsunami splash, and then Reed's looking around like, where the hell's the referee? And so he's watching them do their thing, and he's like, okay, whatever. And he climbs back up and hits a second tsunami. And I'm sitting there thinking, Strowman is super dead now. Like, he's extra super dead. But still, Reed
Rip.
is just in there going, where is the freaking ref? And so he jumps out, and the security guards see him coming, and they try to get in his face, and he just annihilates them. And then he goes and grabs the back of the shirt of the referee and yeets him towards the ring. And that gets Adam Pierce in Reed's face, and Reed gets right back in Adam Pierce's face. And the commentators are like, "No, Reed, don't do it. This is how you get fired. You're
Don't
not just
do
going to
it,
lose the
bro.
match. You're going to lose your job."
Yeah.
And so all of security is wrapping themselves into this big huddle around Adam Pierce and Reed. Well, meanwhile, Strowman has recovered, And this crazy 6'8", 385-pound bastard, I mean monster, climbs up to the top turnbuckle that they are nearest and proceeds to do a flying cross body out of the ring and just obliterates everyone. And at this point, we're like, well, now everyone's dead, but there's not even anyone to count the count because literally everyone is dead. Well,
Yeah.
the referee finally recovers and starts to do the count. And the first one to their feet is Big Bronson Reed. And I remember this because we noted that as he was disentangling himself from the pile of bodies, he proceeded to step fully on one of the security guys. And we're like, that dude is now also dead
Also
because
dead.
he just got fully stepped on by Bronson Reed.
Yeah.
And the ref, I think, is counting, and it looks like Bronson Reed is up, but he's sort of hanging on to the barricade for support. And Strowman, in an act of defiance, immediately sort of jumps up to his feet, all like super defiant, and then grabs Reed and proceeds to yeet Reed back into the ring. And then he grabs the referee and yeets the ref into the ring too. And then we start to see Strowman attempting to go back up to the top turnbuckle, but it's a real slow process. At one point, he's standing on the apron and he takes a knee because he's apparently just been through so much. And he finally gets back up onto the top of the ring. And but it took him so long that Reed's able to sort of intercept him, and he climbs up there and is trying to set up Strowman for a superplex, but they're fighting back and forth, and so Reed starts beating down on Strowman with like hammer blows. And these shots looked good from the angle and the lighting because you could literally see the sweat flying off of Strowman's body
Yeah.
as Reed was hitting him. So it looked mean. And so that is enough to subdue the already kind of exhausted Strowman, and Reed finally gets him and hits the superplex. And we kind of anticipated that this was where they were going, but he hits this monstrous superplex that collapses the entire ring. Like all four ring posts just
Yeah.
demolished. And the referee, I guess, was hanging on to one of the ropes. So when it popped, he flies out of the ring. So everybody dead. Somewhere Lance Archer is like, see, I told you. Um,
I
and
said I knew it.
everybody dies. Um, And so now we are just left with like the wreckage. And
Yeah.
it takes a long time for anybody to start moving. Like it takes a while for the ref to finally get back into the ring and start the count. And Reed kind of rolls over onto his belly and gets on one knee and kind of crawls over to the ring steps that are in the corner of the ring and is resting there while the count is going on. And then we see somebody run out, and it's hard to tell who because of the angle, but we could tell that somebody had come out. And then we hear the announcer say, "Is that Seth Rollins?" And then they cut to the ring where Bronson is still resting kind of over the ring steps. And then we see Seth Rollins run in and curb stomp Big Bronson Reed into the ring stairs. And that obliterates Reed, and that allows Strowman to stand up at least temporarily to answer the count while Reed could not, and thus the winner is Braun Strowman with a handy assist from a vindicated Seth Rollins. And the reason I said he stood up temporarily is he stood up long enough to win the match and then collapsed like a fool, just fell backwards in the middle of the ring
Yeah.
because him and Bronson Reed just gave a 6-star match as two giant like monsters fighting.
It was
Normally those matches are
insane.
reserved for like light heavyweights or middle heavyweights like Will Ospreay, but this absolutely, in my opinion, was a 6-star match from two guys that are like 300 plus pounds. One of them
Yeah.
just on the verge of 400 pounds. And this was amazing. Everything about this last Monster Standing and the whole feud between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed has been a gem. The way they started building up Bronson, and then the way like it became a match between these two monsters that just like they neither one would relent. The build up to this, the way it made both men appear was perfect. And
Yeah.
This was an absolute treat. This was the not just a great main event, but this was an all-time classic match between two big men in pro wrestling. Like this should go in the books as a classic, like maybe match of the year right here between these
I
two.
agree. Yeah,
So
for WWE
absolutely
match of the year.
super good. I would go so far as to say just about anywhere. I haven't seen two big men big as these two men do what these two men did anywhere, even in AEW yet.
I agree. No, no, for big men, that was a great. It was a totally, that was an amazing match. But overall match of the year, I don't think I'd get. That's overall match of the year for me is probably still Will Ospreay versus Pac.
That's fair. That's fair. I would
Is
I
like
would at
one of
least
the
say
best
that this is a
matches.
contender. I would
It
say
is
it's
absolutely.
in the running.
Yeah. No, this match. And speaking of Will Ospreay, I'll say, uh, because I've said this at least 2 or 3 times already on this podcast, that Will Ospreay is the wrestler that makes me feel like I'm a 5-year-old again watching wrestling. This entire match was a match that made me feel like I was a kid again
Mhm.
watching giant men destroy things and each
Couldn't
other. It was fun. It was not boring at all, not even a little bit. Everybody looked really good, and even though we were saying that basically, we were wondering if Strowman was gonna put Bronson Reed over, because ultimately that's what this entire thing with Bronson Reed has been about. Um, and we thought it would come in the form of Bronson Reed winning the match. Uh, I was surprised to see that he didn't, but after the match that was given, Bronson, I feel, I'm sorry, Braun Strowman absolutely put Bronson Reed over.
yes.
Um, the
Braun
the
Braun
the entire
and
match
Seth.
put him over. Yeah, and Seth, like the entire this entire thing has put him over, so he's got nothing but like up from here, if he so desires, if he chooses to. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they keep the spark, the flame alive with this one, because this was one hell of a feud.
Yep, and it grew so organically that it was wonderful.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't like a whole bunch of like hate on the mic or anything like that. This was two monsters vying for who is the most monster in the
yeah,
WWE, and they did all their talking in the match. I
yeah,
mean, there were some vignettes. I'm not going to say they didn't have a little bit, but it was more. This felt more natural and more organic and more true of a rivalry than a lot of the other ones that I see getting thrown together.
yeah.
Um,
True.
and then I agree with you. I couldn't have said it better than what you just did about how this made me feel like I was a little kid enjoying wrestling for what you enjoy wrestling for, and that is two larger than life individuals, like portrayed as kaiju monsters, right? Like this is the feedback loop of like pro wrestling sort of fed into Godzilla movies because Godzilla would throw drop kicks and suplexes. Now this is Godzilla movies feeding back into pro wrestling. And
Yeah,
it's everything. Like if I had a son that I was taking to see a wrestling match, this is the match I would want them to see because
yeah,
it was brutal and the action was amazing, but it also lacked any vulgarity.
yeah.
Like there wasn't any questionable scene, and I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. I'm not passing judgment on that, but that might be a
Right.
little too intense for my little son to deal with, like why did he put a hypodermic needle in his face? That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
There is a place for that. I super enjoy that. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here, but for the other end of that spectrum, can you still have an absolutely brutal, amazing match without it going to those links? Strowman and Reed just showed us that you absolutely can. And
yeah,
this was everything that, if you've been a fan of pro wrestling since you were a little kid, this is why. This was the match that conveyed
yeah,
all of that. So fully agree with your synopsis there.
yeah. And yeah, I agree. This was match of the night. And overall, uh Raw was, I feel, top tier. Um
Yep, I
yeah,
fully
very.
agree. This episode of Raw was absolutely top tier. And I have to say, Little Brother SmackDown, you're going to have to copy your notes and do your homework off of Big Brother Raw. And while
Seriously.
this clearly broke from what they had kind of said was going to be a four match format, but this was their last 3 hour Raw, and I think they really wanted to make it meaningful and give some big payoff to it because it's going to be
Yeah.
2 hours for the next little while until January of 2025 when it goes to Netflix and can become three again.
Yeah.
And you absolutely got your money's worth on this episode of Raw. Top tier, 100%. And the main event between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, absolute contender for match of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That said, we clearly had a lot to say about this action packed edition of Raw. This has been quite a lengthy podcast. So, if to any of our listeners, if you've stayed and listened to this long, we thank you. We hope that you tune in for the next podcast. And I think we have arrived at the point where it's time for me to roll the outro. Thanks again for
Bye
joining us, everybody.
bye. Yep, bye guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.